I would like to start the episode by thanking some folks. Folks like Will Proctor, George Mathis, Jeremy L., Adam Ned, and Anders Svensson. All of these are people who have gone to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and kicked in a few bucks. This supports this show and the whole network of shows that we do, and we greatly appreciate it. You can be like them and go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, support us, and get lots of cool bonus stuff in return. Thank you.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are beginning our two-parter on Final Fantasy XII, which is an RPG developed and published by Square Enix for the PlayStation 2 in 2006.
Yeah. And this is a collab. This is executive produced by Nat. Thank you, Nat.
Thank you, Nat.
And then Cole was like, I really want to do this. Let's stretch it out.
Yeah.
Let's do it over a couple episodes. So we're doing it over 2 episodes. We might have tried to rush it previously.
You're right.
Who knows? Yeah. And the game, as we'll see, the game probably could support that, but I'd prefer to not.
Agree. Yeah. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the Zodiac Age version, which came out in 2017, I believe, 2018, something like that. But we're going to make some references to the original where it improved, because there's really no reason to play the original, as far as I can tell. Maybe there's some kind of like weird min-maxing thing, or for challenge runs, things like that. The quality of life changes in Zodiac Age, and even just like the fundamental changes to the way that you progress, which is an important part of RPGs. All of that is a universal upgrade.
Yeah, it's I can imagine the original version being there for sicko mode kind of thing, and there is min-maxing. Some of the things that were, in my opinion, like pretty trashy, like infamously the Zodiac spear, that nonsense was just taken out.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. So if you like that kind of thing that you could then manipulate really counterintuitively to get a very overpowered item, I can understand wanting to play the original version.
I think I think the axis on which that version is going to appeal to you is, are you a big fan of the Saga games?
Yeah, if you like it, counterintuitive and kind of hostile for the sake of, kind of things. I want to put this out. So this is the first time I played the Zodiac Age version. Final Fantasy XII was the first Final Fantasy like I just fell off of, despite being like a fan for most of my life. There's like a pinpoint moment where I was like, I can't do this. That happened when I was playing it. This is the first time I saw credits on it, even though I had spoiled myself on the thing. And I will say, I have a lot of things that are kind of frustrating to me about this game, some of which are just genre staples, some of which I think are specific to this game. I don't think I would have agreed to do it without the quality of life things that the Zodiac Age adds. It's hard to understate how impactful they are, so much so that it literally, like, if I were judging something on pass fail, this shunts it from fail into pass.
Yes,
for me. It's literally straddles the line of like worth my time or not based on that. And so take that with a grain of salt if you're considering playing along with the show, or you hear this and it inspires you to replay. That gets my full-throated endorsement for what it's worth.
Yes.
I would not touch the original version with your hands.
The nice part is the original version, there's really, unless you're buying original hardware or emulating it, kind of, you have to go to great lengths to play the original now, whereas the Zodiac Age version is just the most available on modern systems, including PC. So you kind of have to go out of your way not to get this. Since we're stating where we're at, I love this game. I was a sicko for the original as well. Like, that was what I was playing when we started up Watch Out for Fireballs 11 years ago. I was just playing it for fun because I was unemployed for a summer. Even being a sicko for the original, I have to say that the Zodiac Age is transformative. It does kind of take it from something where I would make a reserved recommendation of it, and here I can say, like, oh yeah, this is the version. This is great.
When I say, just real quick to clarify, when I say sicko, I mean people who would prefer it now.
Oh yeah,
like at the time we didn't know any better. I'm not saying people who liked Final Fantasy, like, we didn't know that a better alternative version of this existed.
Right.
I'm not saying people who liked this when it came out were sickos. I'm saying that if you choose it now, the original version, you are making a specifically, like, I would prefer the more hostile version.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Nobody's a sicko for digging this when it came out because it was very popular.
Yeah. That's a Final Fantasy game.
Built-in popularity for these bad boys. The story of this game follows a group of rebels in the land of Ivalice, stuck in between a conflict between two empires, Arcadia and Rosaria. This is a prequel to Final Fantasy Tactics. Ivalice, if that rings a bell, that's why. This is set in the far, far, far before times of Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yes. It is closer to the Final Fantasy Tactics Advance version. It's not literally a storybook in this. This is not an isekai kind of thing. However, we do have things from Final Fantasy XI here. We have the Benga. We have the Viera, kind of some of the different non-human races. Whereas by the time Final Fantasy Tactics and Vagrant Story are reached, things are a little bit less fantastical.
Yeah, it's just people.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Final Fantasy Tactics concerns itself with kind of the gods or magic coming back, the ancient religion. This is where that first kind of got shown false.
Yeah.
Like, basically, like, the gods and all that stuff, it's pretty standard stuff. The gods are not gods. They're just mean aliens, basically.
Yeah. Because this is an Ivalice game, it is in this setting. There's a certain kind of story that is going to be told, power struggles, kind of the insignificance of individuals who are at the, basically under the sway of these larger forces that move, irrespective of them. We're caught, like, we spend most of our time in these border kingdoms between the two empires, centered around Dalmasca, kind of this desert kingdom, and its capital of Rabanastre.
Yes. Yeah. And this is the first, game of this type, of definitely an Ivalice, which concerns itself with, like, a realistic countryside.
Yes.
This is a huge open game. Like, you walk around big fields, as opposed to being a desert where, like, my sprite is the same size as a town and every step I'm taking is abstracted, like, miles of travel. You just walk it, you stay in real time and you walk the land. As part of this, they do not have random battles. Enemies are just wandering around. They're engaged in the field. And this is something called the active dimension battle system.
Yeah. Not a name that took.
Well, I wonder why. It's fairly awkward. So everything happens in real time with meters. Things recharge and spells charge and the like. You control your party leader, which you can switch at any time, and you can choose commands and switch over to other people and issue commands from them from a battle menu. But they'll also just kind of go. The other characters are AI controlled. We'll talk about that at length. It's a really big part of the game. But you control one person at a time while the other people kind of autopilot. Yeah.
You have 3 active party members, plus a possible guest party member, which is neat. The Zodiac Age makes it so you can control the guest party members and even adjust their gambits, which is nice. The same is true for the Espers when you summon those in. We'll talk about that when we get to mischarges. But something that is pretty good about this is you can swap in your reserve party members at any time. There are 6 total, regular party members, including if your entire main party wipes. You can start bringing your backup party in. So you roll deep in this, which is a nice, nod to realism, I guess, in a weird way. Whereas, in Final Fantasy
the
X,
line.
Yeah.
It's not like they just hang out at home, but they're also not helping now.
Right.
They're just in a realm and they'll swap out.
Yeah.
Just all this time that Penelo spent inside the bag of holding in the sunken place before I brought her out to like fight. This has a couple different effects. One of which is that if everybody dies, you can bring in your backup party, kind of, which is great. One of the things that happens a lot, I found. So it's like my thesis for this game is I don't like, and we don't have to agree with this. And that's me and you, Cole. And that's also people listening, because these are not criticisms I hear about this game very often. So I think that they're like, I feel very strongly about it. I replayed the game and I feel like they stand up, but they just don't bother people. But also I can't not say the things that bother me. It's the show. So again, I'm not trying to argue this to anybody, but one of my kind of my central thrust of this is that like there are a lot of systems in this game I don't like how they interact with each other.
Okay.
I don't feel like they synergize. And this is one where it's like, I like this in theory. I can switch out a party member. Like maybe they have a speciality that I want to use, or maybe my party wipes, but everybody doesn't gain XP if they're on the bench, which meant I just had 3 characters who would die in one hit. There was no point in switching them out. When I switched people out, what would happen is I would have a party wipe, switch to my backup party, who would immediately get fucking bodied if I couldn't get to the edge of a zone. Because I wasn't taking the time to level everyone up equally, because I don't want to spend twice the time grinding.
Right.
It would not have hurt the game to me to just make everybody gain XP.
Right.
I think that's the right way to do this. And I don't think there's a good argument for not doing it. And I think that a lot of people are, it just didn't bug me. It bugged me. I didn't want to switch people out because they were underpowered.
Yeah.
You get license points, so you get abilities, but you do not gain other things.
Yeah.
You do not gain levels. So the HP was much lower on those folk.
Yeah, like my experience with it was that the raw experience level didn't necessarily matter as much as license points, and specifically gear, which are interrelated to each other. Gear will affect a lot. It'll affect your strength. It'll affect your HP. So an underleveled person with high gear that they can buy, or with powerful gear that they can buy, using the license points, or using the license points, gives them more of a leg up than getting experience otherwise would.
It's definitely balanced that way. Like I agree that like it is more important. It just wasn't trivial. And then you also run into buying equipment for your benched characters. Yeah. Which is additional cost or additional grinding to get money to buy that stuff.
Yeah. This ended up being, this was a huge problem in the original version, when there was really no reason to, differentiate people. There was nothing forcing you to do so. So like you could get by with just your main 3 with the part, with all of the abilities that you needed. In this one, the specialties, get you, shuffling things around, which I mentioned only to say that like this is a problem that was way worse than the original that they attempted to address, and people's mileage is going to vary depending on their own style of play, etc., like how sufficient that change was.
Yes. I think that the change is a billion times better. When the thing that made me quit the first time around was all my characters were the same. And I was like, this is stupid. Yeah. This time around, not all my characters are the same, but I was not incentivized to bring out my bench characters. Yeah. Because they were underpowered, under-equipped, and because I just didn't need to. I might have needed to for optional stuff, like again, to put this out on Front Street. I played through the game. I didn't go hunt. I didn't completionize anything. Yeah. I didn't go do optional stuff very much, just enough to kind of like poke at it. So maybe it would have been for example, Penelo was my black mage.
Okay.
Never used her Didn't need to. Didn't need a black mage. Had a thief, a fighter, and a white mage, time mage, and that gets you through the whole game just fine.
Yeah.
No walls. Like every once in a while I would die. I talked about those party wipes, but we'll talk about that. That has more to do with how this game handles encounter design and kind of beefgate stuff.
Yeah.
Which is something that is hugely improved in this version. They want to have this sense of hostility where you can just run into a wandering monster that will fuck you, these elementals basically. And in the original version, you were just fucked. Like you just had to go back to your save point. Here, at the very least, it auto saves between transitions.
Yes.
So the times I would die and get that party wipe was when I just got ambushed by an elemental usually. But other than that, fighter, thief, white mage, time mage was the key that unlocked everything in the game. Nothing was required anything else.
Yeah. The optional stuff, and by which I mean like engaging with hunts that are above your level or going after the espers, basically anything involving challenge material requires you to really engage with the systems on a granular level. And party design requires you to specialize in a way where the two classes synergize with each other. So there's a very specific set of combinations that you would want to, or there are parameters that you would want to specialize towards that would help you kind of avoid. So I think that because I was playing towards that kind of end, that had me rotating people out more as opposed to having one party that was a key to everything.
And you can again I'm worried that you are going to get fatigued with me during this because I have like there are nitpicks to all of these things and I don't feel like their nitpicks are invalid. It's okay for you to, I can be like, I'm going to say something and I just want you to feel totally safe, Cole, just being like, yeah, that didn't bug me. And then we can move on. I'm not going to try to convince you or whatever, about this stuff. I just need to say it because it's my critical acumen on this game, right? Like my conspectus on this. So one, I think that you can make an argument or the virtue of having to engage with systems only for optional challenge content is arguable. I think that's not, that is kind of sucks that you don't have to engage with the system unless you're doing the hard stuff.
Oh,
I don't, if the game doesn't require you to engage with its systems, like I think that's arguable whether those systems are justified or adequate. Compared to like Final Fantasy VII, which has the challenge bosses where you have to go like very, 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 very deep to get those and get very specific loadouts, but you have to engage on a moderate level up until that point. Here, there's this whole thing switching out party members that I did not have to do to play the main game. I only needed to do something as basic as switching out party members when I got ambushed by monsters or if I was going after optional challenge stuff.
Oh yeah.
I think that that's probably not great. I want to engage with the systems of a game and be incentivized to do it. See also the control episode where telekinesis is the key for everything.
Right. Yeah. And when I respond to your criticisms there with like, oh, here's how it worked for me. It's literally just me saying my experience as well. I just ended up having more fun engaging, like using those high level, because I don't intend to do everything optional for this, using those high level kind of approaches to the way you put a party together or the way that you optimize your gambits and stuff. I was just doing that because that for me was fun for its own sake and also contributed substantially to staying ahead of the power curve so that like I was never in a position where it was even a question where I was going to be able to afford the ability that I needed or the piece of gear that I needed once it became available. Right.
Yeah.
So it was like a matter of like just surviving or thriving. When I initially played the game, and especially back in the older version, because this is the first time that I've played and beaten the Zodiac Age. But when I initially engaged with it, it was in the kind of like I'm gonna have one party, primarily because that's the way that the original version worked.
It wanted you to, and the party could cover every base. They're separate problems. It's whether you can cover every base, which is what that answers, versus what I'm saying is that every base doesn't need to be covered. And that's the problem I'm pointing out. And you're saying like it's fun to cover the bases, and like that's true. Like I could see that. It's it's just not, and I didn't rush this or anything. It's 42 hours. I spent a long time playing this video game.
I'm not accusing you of doing that.
Yeah. It's a long ass game.
Yeah.
So there's separate different, answers and problems to it, and they don't necessarily need to square.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say about that, you had to synergize the jobs and stuff, is that a lot of that stuff is really esoteric.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, that's just guide bait, the way that works. So like, for example, each class, we'll talk about all this stuff and give it context later, but it's important now. You choose to give a summon to a character and influences their character build.
Yeah.
Each class, when you give them that summon, gives them access to different abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So you can min-max which summon you want to give each character.
Yeah.
But it's not something that like, or for example, or like with certain kinds of magic users, if you synergize like a black mage with an archer, you get more of the magic up license things.
Yeah.
This is a difficult thing to plan for based on information in the game.
Yeah, you can preview the license boards, but like this is something that is, I agree with you. There's a lot about this game that is like you need to have a guide, or you just really benefit, with the information ready available to you in an easier to digest form. Yeah, you need a reference book as opposed to getting that same information by looking at it in the game interface.
Which to me, when I talk about the qualities of this game work at odds with each other, that works at odds with that expressive play. Like when you were saying, I'm building a party, I'm crafting a party, that's fun for me. The fact that I have to look up a build for that to get this min-max, to get that stuff, to go do the optional hunts that you don't need to do. You don't have to, like, it all kind of becomes this reverse dominoes kind of thing where like, that feels less expressive to me. I can't make the choice. I have to look up stuff.
Right.
Like I want to choose stuff because it's cool and make sense, which I did because the game isn't hard. I just did what sounded cool and it worked. Yeah. But if I wanted to go switch to those optional things, I may have fucked myself by choosing non-optimal character classes combos that I did not have the information for without looking it up outside of the game.
Yeah, there absolutely needs to be a respec in this. I mean, every game with this kind of long-term decision making that you're making, needs that.
I think so. I didn't find out until way late. There is a respec in this.
Oh, is there?
The game does not. Yeah, you talked to Mont Blanc at the thing.
Oh, huh.
But the game doesn't communicate it to you.
No.
Like you have to be engaging again with those optional systems to get it. Like it's a key component. There's like an inelegance to this that like I can't totally name. But it's these things that each one leads to a thing where like this would be good except for. And then goes to another thing. And there are things that are just unqualified wins in this. But these little innovations, there are reasons why it doesn't end up feeling like a slam dunk to me, because there's something else that holds it back a little bit.
Yeah, I can't disagree that the dynamic that you're talking about is there. There's a certain, I think the systems are way too baroque, even though they scaled back on that. And things don't necessarily hang together, as well and apparently as they would absolutely need to. I think that one of the reasons we're kind of like slamming up against this is possibly a psychographic difference. I really enjoy sitting down and planning this stuff out, even with understanding, requiring a reference book. To make kind of an appeal to a different to different Final Fantasy games. Like I played Final Fantasy VIII. You don't need to do this, but like picture me being 13 years old and filling up a notebook with like charts and equations, trying to figure out which elements I need to bind to what to make my characters the most powerful.
Yeah.
That kind of paper planning is really engaging to me, which is just a statement, not like saying, oh, this thing is inherently good because it gives you the potential to do that kind of stuff.
And I like that there is a version that is very similar to that is exactly Gary bait.
Yeah,
but it doesn't require looking up stuff outside of the game, and the game itself, the critical path requires it. Like the fact that you only need to do that if you're going to go off and fight the super bosses, and everything else will be basically a breeze, is a downside to me.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be tested with my paper planning. I want it to be towards an end. Otherwise it just feels like I'm playing with a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You know, so like, I like an example, like I loved planning out character synergies and class synergies in like Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah.
And partly because that game requires a lot of rigor, like just on the surface. It is a hard game. You are rewarded for doing things that are really tricky.
Yeah.
For the main path of this game, you know, when you're talking about class things and license things, you know, it was not really required. And when we're talking about gambits, which we'll get into in a moment, I pretty quickly stumbled upon the optimal gambits.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I didn't have to keep messing with that after about halfway through the game. I would just intervene when somebody got a status effect I wasn't spec'd for.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. Like I could have fucked around with it more, but I didn't need to.
Yeah. I was constantly fucking with it. In order to like mostly to save myself items, you know, just like it was an efficiency thing.
Yeah. I ended up because I had a white mage and a time mage permanently in the party, buffs and getting rid of status effects and getting rid of buffs is all Ash did. And it was fine. And Bosch and Vaughn just killed everything.
Yeah.
You know, I just did not have to mess with it very much. And I liked messing with it. That first half of the game, like I like the gambit system. We'll talk about that in a minute. I think it's good. I'm not saying that that's a bad system. It's just not as, I don't know. It just doesn't fit together as well as I want it to.
I think that you just don't find intrinsic reward in fucking with that stuff. Whereas I do.
I do to a degree.
Right.
You know, I do to a degree, but because I wanted to get past the monsters, finding a thing that worked to get past the monsters without hurting me at all, you know, without being a resource drain. There wasn't reason to keep fucking with it. Like I want both sides of the equation. I don't want to just, you know, play, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and the interest of moving forward, I do agree that there needs to be more rigor required in the main course of the game. I would agree with that. They can lean on their system more because it's good enough to be leaned on, right? With a couple of changes, they can require you to think about this stuff. And I have no idea what the calculus was that went into kind of making the main stuff something that you can brute through, right?
It's Final Fantasy. It's what they do with every game in the series. It is a value of the series because they just want people to be able to get through it. Yeah. You know, when you are online, when you're wandering around in the field, you get a little readout of what actions the enemies are preparing for things, what you're charging, who is aggroed onto who.
Yep.
This is just done through these little arc lines. That's great. It's you see it immediately at a glance.
Yeah.
What's going on. I think that's very good.
Once you realize how much of this battle system was inspired by American football, and you see the arcing lines as like the play paths in a Madden game, a lot unlocks for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's chat gambits.
Let's talk
about gambits.
I'm in love with the gambit system, Gary. Farewell, tappa, baby.
This feels almost to me, and I know this is not the intent of it, it almost feels like a critique of JRPG systems to me. Because if you think about the kind of choices you have to make in a Final Fantasy IV, right? All you're really doing is choosing, you choose the optimal thing to do in any situation. For most monsters, it's just attack. You heal when you're hurt, and you have to be adequately supplied.
Yes.
At a town. Like the choice part, the tactics or strategy part of most combat in like Final Fantasy IV is just how many potions did you think to buy?
Right.
You know, like are you provisioned? This game, by allowing you to automate all of that stuff, makes all of the like trash enemies, like anything that's not a boss or like a hidden elemental fuck you guy, just you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, and I like that as opposed to tappa very much.
Yeah.
1,000 times better. If it wasn't for Zodiac Age though, where I could go to 4 times speed, I would be pretty annoyed watching these fights play out without my input.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I could go through so fast, I was basically just a buzzsaw going through these dungeons, killing bats, you know, just moving my little Katamari of death through this that would automatically like self-healing, self-buffing Katamari of murder, made it very painless, which is something I cannot say for JRPG combat ever. Right. There's not one, I think, where the just rank and file encounters are not boring as fucking sin. Here, they just go by real quick.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really good way to do this if you have to do it. Like, if you have to have encounters that don't matter, if your game design is predicated on having mobs that you're just going to plow through, you may as well just make it like, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, that's why where it feels like almost like a critique, like it feels like the logical endpoint of Final Fantasy IV combat to me.
Yeah. People reacted very poorly to this. You know, I think that they say like, oh, this takes all the challenge away. Why are you going to, you know, like,
what challenge?
Oh, yeah. Like, what challenge? You weren't making like the decisions.
Like, it's not a meaningful decision to decide to attack an imp.
Yeah.
You know, of course you're going to attack the imp. Like, a lot of times you can't do anything other than that. You know, it's not a genre with a lot of verbs in a typical sense. Like and again, even when there are a lot of verbs, they're not required. Like you could cast slow on this imp, but why would you? You know, there's no reason to do that. It's a waste of resources. You were all like, people were like, oh, gamuts mean the game's playing itself. The game was effectively playing itself before.
Yeah. You were
like
playing
to this degree.
You were playing it to a very simple heuristic that required you to be the button pusher, which is not interesting. And at this point, it's like, you know, something unlocked this for me when they were making promotional videos for the Zodiac Age edition. They made a very effective video. You know, basically saying that the Gambit system, which is you customizing the AI. For all of your characters, not just you know, the ones who are AI controlled all the time, but you are using basically the tools and the logic that has always been available on the developer's side for making the enemies behave the way that they do. They've always behaved based on this conditional programming. They had these prioritized lists, and they took actions based on the conditions of the battle that were there. Here, it is just giving you an interface to make that true for your people as well, making it so you are only making like the big you only have to make like the decision once for a while. Okay,
it's a macro.
It's a macro. My characters right now, they have very little HP, so they need to be healed when they're below 70%. As we get more HP, well, we can start playing a little bit more dangerously. You know, people aren't going to chunk them like they did before, so let's bump that down to 50% now that we're beyond this, you know, beyond this point. You establish a baseline, and then for me anyway, it's constantly tweaking, and then getting into an encounter, getting about like a third of the way through it and saying, okay, this is happening, then diving into the menu and then changing the parameters so they can effectively go up against whatever we're at now, and interacting, calling audibles to keep it in football play terms whenever something extenuating comes up.
Yeah, you having to intervene from the game playing itself under your direction, under your commands. And to me, I've always, one of the things that has always been a block for me in understanding the value of this genre is those very simple heuristics have always been there.
Yes.
Right. Like just these commands, you're doing them in your head when you're playing Final Fantasy IV or Chrono Trigger. Like, oh, my guy's hurt, I got to heal him.
Yeah.
I've always felt like there was a little bit of a difference in a psychographic where, and this is not a brag, like I'm God's fucking idiot. I do all kinds of stupid stuff, but those heuristics were so obvious to me as to not require thinking.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't meaningful to me to heal my character when they were hurt.
Yeah.
In Final Fantasy IV. Taking that thing that was not meaningful to me away is huge, like addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
You know, it just, that never worked for me. It works for folk. I don't understand how, but you know, no judgment. That is good to some. For me, it is absolute upside. Just get rid of that. And that to me, it's a little bit damning. You know, it does feel like a criticism. It feels like it lays bare how shallow those heuristics were.
Yes.
When you were playing again versus trash mobs, I'm not talking about fighting Emerald Weapon or things that require strategy. I'm talking about 80% of the combat in the game.
Yeah.
not the highlight stuff. Yes. That stuff, it's great. It's much smarter to do it that way. It leans into what the genre has been anyway.
Yes.
This kind of clicker, I'm going to move, going to make my things come up, and I'm just going to pay attention when things get rough.
Yeah. I mean,
that's always what's been.
Something that came here for me is like, oh, this turns turn-based RPG combat, turns active time battle combat into a management sim. I'm watching the meters and I'm automating it and making adjustments to make sure they go the right way, which is really satisfying to me.
Yeah. The thing where I don't have to tweak it that much, so the things you brought up, the examples of like, oh, my guys have more HP, I can probably heal them at 50% instead of 70%. Like I did those things, but the number one change I ended up making was switching what status effect I would trigger an automatic Asuna. And it was just whatever status effect was in the dungeon.
Yeah.
My two martial characters did not change for, I would say, almost all of the game.
Oh, wow.
Steal if 100%. Attack party leader, attack any, and then attack who the party leader is.
Oh wow, I was changing stuff based on like who has the highest max HP, who has the highest current HP, all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah, I can see. It would never take that fun away from you. It's not something that I feel like the game, based on what's in the game, encourages.
Yeah.
Like it encourages demand. It's there. It's encouraged because it's there. There's no factor. There's no adversarial factor that is like, hey, take a look at this.
Yeah.
Like really get into this. And your mileage will vary whether that's a problem or not.
Yeah.
But I do think this is really good. I was very surprised to find Phantasy Star 4 not cited as an influence.
Oh yeah.
It was wild when we did that. And I was like, oh, this has a gambit system. Like you just set everybody up as an autopilot for the battle. Yeah. It doesn't have the if, but it has the, do this, prioritize list thing.
Yeah. It's a, short of making it something like a Final Fantasy Tactics, short of making it, a place where you're making more interesting decisions as things go. This to me feels like the apotheosis of, two whole generations of JRPGs. Like, yeah, this is ultimately where it needs to get. These are, it frees you up to make, to make the larger scale decisions and engage with the cool stuff when it arises. Right.
Yes. Yeah. And to me, there's discussion to be had about the frequency and density of those cool stuff arising.
Yes.
When you need to make those bigger decisions. That's important to me.
Yes.
I like that it frees you up to just make those. I think it is still a problem that it doesn't, like there are large stretches of it where it's just nothing.
Yeah.
I just move my little guy through, and the game is just literally playing itself for huge dungeons, huge mazes. I'm just like, that is a problem to me. Yeah. But I would rather that than tap through all these encounters.
Yeah.
I think it is really telling that Final Fantasy didn't go back.
Oh yeah.
After this, like this is the logical conclusion of old school JRPG design, and the series has said, fuck it, we're action games now.
Yeah.
Based on this, like we can't do that heuristic thing anymore.
Yeah. And, say what you will about Final Fantasy XIII, the story and the pacing are the big problems there. That battle system is really good. Final Fantasy XV's battle system is really good.
They're 13 or 15 are you talking about? I think you said 13 the first time and 15 the second time.
They're similar systems.
Oh, yeah. It eventually gets very, pretty cool.
Yeah.
On those.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Your gambits can get more complex as you go. You unlock extra slots for more logic as you grow your characters. You buy them on the license board, and you buy the gambit triggers at stores. This is an improvement for the Zodiac Age. Previously, oh my god, that was really bad. And previously, the gambit triggers, you had to find them in the environment. You had to get them as rewards from chests.
You could buy some in the original version. They were just very limited. And there were ones that are very key to any kind of strategy that would not be available into the game, like halfway through the game.
Yeah.
You would get things that are, were on my characters from moment one. think about what that does in terms of a decision, right? Like what that is doing is saying it's very Final Fantasy XIII. We have a system that's pretty complicated. We don't trust you to use it yet. And it's not only do we not trust you past the tutorial, we don't trust you for 30 fucking hours.
Right.
You know, it's the Final Fantasy.txt thing that drives me nuts about this company that has no faith in me as a person. In fact, it hates my guts. But that was such a wildly misguided decision. And I'm really glad they decided to course correct.
Just lay it out.
It was,
because
15 years late, but they did it.
If you don't happen to get the get the trigger, if ally is poisoned, you're never going to be able to like automatically deal with anybody who is poisoned, right?
Yep. You're always going to have to pause the combat and do this.
Yeah.
And all that takes is time. It's not taking additional resources. You're using the resources anyway. It's not taking decision-making power, because healing somebody who's poisoned with a poison heal is obvious. That is a heuristic you were just born with. Babies know how to do it. It just doesn't, it respects your time more.
Yeah.
To do it this way. There's little remnants of it. Like they still you had to buy them now in stores. And there's this feeling of being like nickel and dimed.
Yeah. I don't care
for this stuff. Like it's like 50 gil. For this huge list of things you can get. I really wish it was
just laid out. Like that is, I don't know. It's still stopping you because like gil is pretty scarce early on before you figure out the loot system.
Yeah.
I wish that that you just started with all of it.
And the genre triangle of this, it's scarce unless you just want to spend more time.
Right.
It's not really scarce. Like I can just, if you want to, just grind to level 99 in the first zone. Like you can, it's just time. There's nothing in game design stopping you from doing it.
Yeah.
So you can then grind up for those gambits, if you want.
Yeah.
So, you can set your characters into flee mode, which will turn off gambits and just make them follow your character. So you can run past enemies that aggro you. This is great. A good way to do it, rather than having like a percentage chance of it working or anything. You're just turning it off and moving your guy, hitting the bricks. This is elegant and good.
Agreed. Weapons and equipment matter. This is, kind of expanding upon things that were there previously. You had back range enemies who were more back range, and flying enemies who were more susceptible to ranged attacks. Here, they are actually making it so melee weapons and such, behave differently. So flying enemies, they are immune to most of your melee attacks unless you have a particular skill. What's up?
Weirdly, some flying enemies. So like bats, not flying. Dragons flying. Gargoyles, not flying. Like it's not flying. It's a weird classification.
It's do they have the flying symbol next to them?
Yes.
So you can hit them with guns and bows and arrows and the little measures, things like that. But long melee weapons like spears and poles, those will reach them. So that is a reason to spec for those if you do not want to rely on, just bows and arrows, because those are affected by weather, like we'll talk about.
Yeah. You can get a skill that obviates this, so your melee characters can fight flying things. You also get a lot of because flying enemies are relatively rare. This would have been something that made me switch to my ranged characters, but again, I didn't really have to. I just would use items on these guys.
Yeah,
there's no dungeon where like everyone's a flyer. That it's a pretty rare enemy classification for this. So the weapons and stuff are different. This is another thing that's a lot better in this version. In the original version, everyone could just use like axe class weapons, I think, and they were by far the best one. Here, because you're choosing a class, which we'll talk about when we talk about the license board, you are incentivized to use other weapons.
Yes.
Their cooldowns, their crit rates, things like that mattered.
Right. Combos and crits are really important. Crits are better than everything because you get, or no, not crits. Opposite. Combos are more important than everything because you hit multiple times, so it's effectively getting a multiplier. Whereas crits just hit harder once. This means that light weapons, which in other situations might be considered not really useful at all, they end up being really valuable. Things like katanas, especially because you can get multiple hits in, possibly.
Yes. Yeah. There are elemental weaknesses and resistances again. Status effects. Enemies tend to be susceptible to status effects and use them. There are also really powerful buffs that you can get, like kind of game breaking buffs from the Final Fantasy VIII school.
Yeah.
Of buff design.
Bubble and double, baby.
Yeah. Bubble double. Just throw it on there, baby. Things like that. That's all good stuff. I think that is, fun to fuck around with.
Lends to, this falls into the column. A Final Fantasy game is only as good as how much I can break it.
Yes. Yeah. And it to me very underlines how misguided it was for status effects to barely matter while taking up 80% of the spell list in previous games. Like if everything's immune to sleep or I can just kill it in 2 hits.
Yeah.
This is not worth its inclusion.
Oh, I learned break. Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh man, like this, there's no reason here, things are susceptible to break. It's still not super useful, but things are susceptible to it. So,
yeah.
There's a lot more magic in this. There's black and white magic, which we know that's offensive and defensive healing magic. Green magic, which is kind of your status and utility magic. Time magic, which is also utility, like buffs and debuffs as well, just different flavors of them. And then arcane magic, which I did not fuck with.
Arcane magic is mostly debuff kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There are also just kind of moves you'll get, these techniques, moves that work in specific conditions. These are really underrepresented in this game.
Yeah.
You can get more of them just through treasure. In terms of buying them, like at the end of the game, the last shop has something like 6 of them for sale.
Yeah.
And that's all of them that you can buy. You have to find these things, which to me, when you talk about the reverse dominoes or whatever, interacts with the way this game does treasure. But these are theoretically super neat to me. I was not incentivized to use them because I didn't have to.
Yeah.
Nothing needed it.
Yeah, these end up being on the game breaker path, even just from the loot perspective, primarily because of steal and poach. This is the way to,
I did use steal a lot.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, steal is always your opening gambit, but poach especially, it's catching something like a Pokemon and getting an especially rare kind of pick up off of that. It just gives you access to different loot tables, essentially, meaning that you have to input less time to get the resources that you need to, just body everything.
Yes.
Yeah. This works alongside, your equipment, weapons and armor. Like we said, they affect your stats quite heavily. Also, accessories are here and they are really powerful and also highly situational. There are ones that basically change the way the game plays, like the Neopala. Which basically gives you the ability to reverse any status effect. So you can go around using very cheap items to take down incredibly powerful stuff. This is a way to jump the power curve when you're dealing with high level hunts, things like that.
Yeah, you doom train things by throwing remedies at them.
Yes.
Basically, most of the accessories are immunity to a specific status effect. Through them, at least ones you can buy, not the more esoteric ones that are on the rarer loot tables. The idea here being, I think you go into a dungeon, you see, oh, these guys cast stop. I'm going to give everybody my get rid of stop thing. The gambit system before this, to its credit, that kind of runs into safety bit stuff. Like I'm giving up a customization slot to avoid an annoyance, which I never like in this genre. In here, the gambit stuff made it so I didn't have to. I never put on an immune to stop because I would just have my character cure stop and kept them with their more expressive counterattack or double license points or whatever I had them using. There's a weather system in this game. The weather system is interesting. It changes accuracy, elemental attack effectiveness, that's all well and good. The thing that I find obnoxious about the weather system is that it's related to certain hunts. So you kind of have to grind for certain weathers.
Yeah.
Like this thing only appears when it's storming. I have to keep going in and out of this area until the weather changes.
Yeah.
And it also makes very powerful enemies that will one-shot you spawn.
Yes.
From time to time. You have no control over this, and you have no way to forecast it. It's just a world state that is in a zone. Cool in theory. I don't end up I didn't have to fuck with it very much this playthrough. I remember my first playthrough of doing more hunts and having to be like looking up in a guide because there wasn't info for it, being like, oh, the reason why this thing hasn't appeared is because it's not raining.
Yeah.
I had to wait for that.
Yeah. That ends up being it's Final Fantasy XII.text in a big way, which is not a good thing.
Yeah. It's it's much less of a factor in the Zodiac version.
Yes.
For the version the way I played the game.
Yeah. There's a system that governs your limit breaks and your Esper and your summons. So you've got these mist charges, which you accumulate by dealing and taking damage. And you expend these to perform kind of these really powerful attacks. So Espers are unlocked when you find them out in the game world. There are a couple that you get over the course of the main story, but many of them are optional boss challenges that unlock at certain points in the in the story. These fights are almost universally really fun. if you engage with the kind of higher level play on this, it ends up feeling like raid encounters almost in an MMO. And these things are really powerful. You summon them and they fight alongside your party. Basically, they
fight alongside whoever summoned them.
Yes.
So you don't keep your whole party. Two of your party members go away and they're replaced by a monster.
Yeah. And you have to keep it alive. It has HP, and it is around for a maximum of 4 minutes.
You also have to keep the summoner alive. If the summoner faints, the summon will go away.
Yeah.
The summon stays around for 4 minutes or until it does its ultimate attack.
Yes.
Which you can trigger whenever you like. That is something they added to the game, allowing you to control the monsters. Just a UI thing. This is a nitpick. It's not a major complaint. They don't change the camera when it is. So when I would summon Belial and like walk around, I couldn't see anything. Exceedingly silly. Yeah. Just a minor time waste that added up was when they do their ultimate attacks, you cannot skip the animation.
Yeah, that's
no
a bummer.
matter how many times you've seen it.
Yeah. Get that Final Fantasy VIII shit out of here. Although they had a way to skip it. Fuck.
They had a way to make it shorter in Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
you could switch it to the abbreviated versions, but you're watching this thing. Like there's like an arrogance to that just drives me nuts. Like,
I don't care.
You're seeing it. Like we animated it, and not only like I loved it. I think it's in 9. They had the system where the first time you summon something, it would show you the whole thing.
Yeah,
and then it would show you the abbreviated version because they realized like I don't need to watch Belial do this little fire dance.
No,
this many fucking times. It's not that cool. It's all right, but like.
The problem is people over-validated Final Fantasy VII for its big bombastic summon animations and stuff, and so it's like, oh shit, this is what people want.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I was part of that problem. Like I had people come over. Yeah, I remember a non-gamer friend, my friend Mike. I brought him over and I was like, check this out, dude. Yeah. And I showed him Ifrit. I'm sure I told this during the Final Fantasy VII thing. And he was like, this just looks like a shitty cartoon. Like it's just a bad looking animation. And I was like, no, but check it out. It's so badass, and it's just.
But don't you understand? Sephiroth destroyed the solar system.
Yeah,
and he does it multiple times.
Yeah, and it's just the same every time. You just watch the same little like FMV. It's an aspect of this genre that's aged poorly now that watching a 15-second movie, is not as novel.
Yeah,
over and over. The way these guys work is cool. I like that they have their own. I like being able to control them. So I like being able to go through and be strategic with them. And they added a lot of depth to this for the Zodiac Age version. They give them spells.
Yeah,
made their basic attacks good. Which were not very good.
Yeah.
What works a lot less for me are quickenings in this.
These take some getting used to.
I got used to them. I just didn't like watching the animations. Like it's the same problem as the summons, except more so. The way these work is you choose to do a quickening You have 3 levels, and it will take a certain number of these mischarges that you get, and you combo them. So your character does their little animation, like North Swain's Bolt, and then you can choose, based on your other party members, which one you want to tag in next as the little timer counts down. You can do this until you run out of quick hitting mischarges, and then the option may appear to recharge or mischarge. You have a little button that allows you to shuffle. Similar to Selfie's limit break thing in Final Fantasy VIII. So the optimal way to get very long combo strands and do a lot of damage of this is to just roll a pencil or something, or your finger over the button, so you're constantly hitting a button, and then just tap the R2 so you're constantly reshuffling, and you can get long chains of these. You have to watch all of them. There's no skip, and they take a long time. And that was enough to where I stopped wanting to do them.
I would much rather use my mischarges on summons as the thing. But this is the way. This is the way to deal the most damage. Is to get get a long chain followed by an ultimate. I think you can do like 60,000 at a throw, because the Zodiac Age got rid of the damage cap. You can combo this almost infinitely for a very, very long time, and like obviate bosses. Definitely story bosses. These also, the more high value, like depending on the configuration of quickenings you throw into your combo, you get concurrences, which are just finishers. For these, so it's like, oh, I did 2 level 2s and 3 level 3s. That's this, this particle effect at the end. It's okay, useful, but not that fun to engage with, in my opinion. A note about the espers: I love the visual designs on these things.
They're great.
It's amazing.
It's kind of like a chess piece made of horse or whatever, like a centaur, but with a chess bishop as a butt. It's very confusing.
I love how confusing they are to look at, which feels counterintuitive, but like they look like biblical angels to me. It's great. They're incomprehensible spiritual monsters.
They look really good. Something that up until they got modern, I felt like Final Fantasy did a great job with, like, monster design. It's like a strength of the series, up until the Shiva motorcycle shit. But up until that point, like, I felt like everything looks pretty cool, and these guys look great. I've looked up the ones that I didn't get, because I didn't get the optional ones, and they all look cool. So good, and just rank and file monsters also look cool. They do a good job with that in this game.
Visual design all around is great.
I have some issues with costumes. We'll get to when we get to the characters. I don't. Penello's jumpsuit that has the symbol for a pair of shorts on the front, like she's a superhero named Shorts Girl. This team of bad haircuts and bronzer. Like, everybody's got like fake tanning stuff on them. They all look like Tim Heidecker characters to me. Vaughn looks exactly like the Crimbus special Tim Heidecker. I think that they generally do not look good. Bosch and Balthier look cool.
Bosch and Balthier are like Ash as well. Vaughn has a real Anthony Kiedis kind of vibe to him, circa Californication.
I hate him. We'll talk about the characters. He is my enemy.
So let's talk about the license board. We're about an hour in, and we haven't gotten to it yet, but this is a huge deal. It's something that got infinitely better with the Zodiac Age version. So you do get experience points. Only active characters get the experience. This will, raise your base stats, raise your HP. It's important, but nowhere near as important as the license board stuff. Everybody gets license points when you kill something, and you go in and do kind of this game's version of the sphere grid.
Yes. The idea here is you have a chessboard specific to the class you choose. You'll eventually get a second class, but you start off with just one. And you kind of leapfrog your way through it. You unlock a node using a certain number of points, and this unlocks the surrounding nodes. These can be things from these are permissions, not abilities, which is important.
Yes.
So permission to use a specific ability. Some passive abilities you do not have to buy. So active abilities you need to buy. Passive abilities will just happen. And then stat buffs.
Right.
and the ability to use certain equipment. And you kind of map out and kind of scoot, like inch around one node at a time to work towards things.
Yeah.
They start you in the middle. The things near the end tend to either be more powerful or more specialized. And that is how you build characters in this game.
Yeah.
Having the characters be different. So I think that this system is a failure in the original version of this.
Yes.
Having everyone use the same board, there was no reason not to make every character the same.
It wasn't just the same board, it was the same starting point.
Yes.
I think those two things were a death knell, because in the Sphere Grid system, which when we revisited it, you know, a lot of the shine came off of that apple, just because we were very rarely making an actual decision. Like, everybody shared the same Sphere Grid board, but you had different starting places, kind of indicating that, like, oh yes, this is a person who is this class, but you can multi-class if you put in the time to get the resources needed to customize, right?
Yes. Yeah. Here, instead of everyone just kind of starting in the same position and being the same person, like in the first game, this is the thing that made me quit Final Fantasy XII when I was first playing it. I was like, why wouldn't everyone just have Cura?
Right.
Like, it makes no sense to not cover my bases this way. And it was not taking a resource, like a appreciable resource cost to do it. Here, they make you make the choice up front. Only certain classes can do it. You know, and this gives you that feeling of like a party of adventurers that you do not have in the original version. Pretty cool.
So,
like this part is much improved.
Yeah, it's even improved over the International Zodiac job system version, which was
by having the double job.
Yeah, the double job. So, like, previously you would just lock yourself out of 6 jobs because you could only take one. That is baffling to me.
I don't. That doesn't bother me. Like, I like that. Like, I'm going to play through this game with this party configuration. You know, similar to like Final Fantasy I.
Yeah,
you know, or something like that. I'm not a completionist. I don't need to do all the stuff. And that's which is what I think they were going for with that. You know, and the degree to which it's successful, you know, who knows. Here you can double up everybody. You don't need to. You can have characters have the same job. They're not like staked out by somebody. And if you're doing a min-maxy build, you do that. There are classes that synergize with multiple jobs, and you want to have multiple people take that job.
Yeah, but specializing is good.
Yes. The reverse dominoes or whatever, that's not describing this, but I'm going to stick with it. The thing that this is bugging me is I don't like that you also have to buy and find the things. Yeah. This is every character being the same was addressed in the Zodiac Age. Something that is inherent to the license board. Since you're buying permission, you're not buying the ability. You're paying for everything twice using 2 different currencies.
Yeah.
So you can, for me, just my experience, took away about half the time the good feeling of leveling up. I would level up, I would see a cool ability and be like, that sounds neat. I would like to be able to cast that spell, but that spell may not be available to find or buy for like 3 towns.
Right.
You know, so that's not a death knell. It just ended up making finding that node feel really bad. And when I first came to this from Final Fantasy X, as a young adult, it really sucked because Final Fantasy X, the thing I liked about it was you leveled up all the time. Like, levels up came fast and frequent. And it oftentimes felt, at least when I was younger, that I was getting a new meaningful thing.
Yeah.
Some of that shine went off when we revisited it, but it still felt more like that. I cannot say that Final Fantasy XII does that.
Right.
I would say about half the time where I would pop into the license board, I would, you know, is Final Fantasy X, get done with the battle, see that I had some Sphere Grid points, really excitedly go into that and customize my character. Here, I wait until I have 100, 200 license points before I even look at the thing, because I'm not going to be able to use the stuff that I get. Yeah. It was not worth the menu tax. And leveling up and choosing new abilities should be fun. That should be, you know, that should be a cool video game thing I get to do. A lot of times here it fell pretty flat. And there were also abilities I bought on the license board that I never found. They were hidden. The reason why I bring this up now is because it dovetails into the treasure and dungeon design system of this game. But it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Yeah. You know, I guess it is improved. It's not horrible. It's not pulling teeth, but I wanted those good feels from choosing a node. And I didn't want to just waste my time and waste my resources choosing a node that I'm just never going to find the thing.
Right.
Without looking it up.
It's one of those things that definitely does require a mindset change, which is like, okay, I'm going to put this in now, hopping over this ability that I can't get in order to get the ones that benefit me more immediately, getting to a cluster of stat improvements, getting to a cluster of passive ability kind of things. And then just picking that spell up when you get it. I agree that like for some of them it doesn't make that much sense to me. If getting permission to use a spell doesn't make as much sense and is not as gratifying to get permission to just learn the damn thing. To me, yeah,
it's gated in two ways. You're gated based on your effort, based on how many license points you have and where you spend them. Mm-hmm. You're also gated by your progression through the world, which is a very old school Final Fantasy thing. Yes. Like in Final Fantasy IV, you get to the town that sells the spell, or you don't buy spells in that in Final Fantasy I. Mm-hmm. You get to the town that sells the equipment, that's what you can use it for. Yeah. Here, it just felt like I was duplicating effort. Mm. Like choose one. Either meet out my power curve through my progression through the game, mm-hmm. or meet out my power curve through my customization. When you're doing both, it just feels like kind of a crappy compromise. Mm. If I were to do this differently, I would say spells and abilities you do not have to find or buy. Mm-hmm. If you unlock them, you've learned them.
Right.
And then instead of equipment, have equipment be specific to class and replace those nodes with stat stuff.
Yeah.
I'm building a character, I'm choosing my stats and everything, but there's nothing stopping me from swinging a piece of wood.
Right.
The idea behind this was not gameplay forward. When you read about the development of this thing, it was to enforce this idea of rigid law and hierarchy in this world.
In a way, like spiritually or story-wise, it is pulled over from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, where the idea of the judges is brought in.
Yes. In that game, a judge was specifically like, hey, for this battle, you cannot use fire magic. No real reason. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
It's not something I love about Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Here, it's just ambiently in the world, you cannot use this sword.
Yeah.
And like that, that's something you could do with like level minimums and stuff too. Like that, it's not totally different from how video games gate progress with this kind of stuff. It just, to me, it always felt bad to buy an ability I could not get or have access to.
Yeah.
That there was a pretty consistent bad feel. It's not a huge deal in like issues I have with the game, but it's part of why this doesn't hang together for me.
Yeah.
It's not as elegant as it could be.
Yeah. And for me, it's just, I just kind of shifted toward a delayed gratification kind of deal. Just like, okay, I'm planning for when I eventually get this, because I know I'm eventually going to want to use that accessory, and that's probably going to be coming up, stuff like that.
Yeah. This was something that I think my issues with it could be fixed by tweaking. Mm-hmm. It's like a pacing thing, when it feels like, since it's all basically math, you could make it so around the same time I have the license points to unlock this thing, around then is when I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
Like you could do that. They don't want to do that because I have to be able to grind and stuff because it's a JRPG.
Right.
They cannot control how many license points I have because they cannot control how much time I want to spend on stuff. It's just not how the genre works.
Nope.
So it not a huge deal, but it is something that made this a little worse than the sphere grid to me. Then and now.
Yeah. I think I prefer this current iteration to it over the sphere grid, but I agree with the ups and downs that you've laid out.
Yeah. It's just going to vary whether it bothers you. Like I like leveling up and getting new abilities in video games. Mm-hmm. Like it's a thing I really like.
Yeah. Something that I think we're both going to agree is a real problem with this is the reliance of the RNG, especially as it relates to the reward structure. There's just an overabundance of really arcane systems that are put in place to, determine what you're going to get as a reward for exploration and combat. Like everything, this used to be much worse. The contents of later chests would be affected by what you opened early on, and there was no indication of that, specifically with the second to best weapon in the game, the Zodiac Spear. And Final Fantasy XII.text, these are just systems that are and were obfuscated to you. but it does have knock-on effects for the dungeon design as well. And whether or not it takes away some of the excitement about whether or not you're going to it takes away the excitement that you're going to feel when you see a treasure chest, because there's no guarantee that what you're going to find in there is actually going to be valuable.
It's more than no guarantee. Yeah. Like it's 95% of chest easy.
Yeah.
Like that's not me being mean. It's at least that many are no value. Mm-hmm. There's reading about the development of this game made me feel like, and I don't, there are a great many things I like about this game. The people who made it are professionals. I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback them too much. Mm-hmm. There are things that feel naive to me. So when you read about the philosophy behind this random treasure system, what they wanted to do was engender this feeling of fate. Like, on this run, this is just my characters didn't find a cool weapon. They found 63 gil.
No,
and I just have to roll with that punch. And then they were somehow shocked to find that gamers, instead of doing that, just optimized and re-rolled chest until they got the optimal thing.
No.
Are you new? Like, how were you born from an egg? Like, Sweeting, little Culver, what are you doing? Why would you think that in a million years?
Look, gamers will make the game as unfun as possible for themselves if it means they get a treat.
Yeah, they will optimize anything. And what this does, this is huge again to me. This is going to bother. I got into a long Twitter argument with Will about this, but it's going to bother different people depending on their sensibilities. Mm-hmm. But like, for me, I like getting a treat. I like getting an extrinsic and an intrinsic reward. Mm-hmm. In an RPG of any stripe, I would like the combat to be fun and get a cool seeming thing afterwards. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like it's asking very much.
Yeah.
In Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age, a lot of times the combat was not tedious, but it wasn't anything. I just moved my roll of gambits through things. And then I would go to the corner of a dungeon where a chest had a chance to spawn. When it would spawn, 95% of the time I would get jack shit. I would go through this encounter. I would walk down to the end of this hallway and get 63 gil for doing this. That's very bad to me. Mm-hmm. Like that fucks with my reward feeling. Like, I stopped wanting to pick up chest. That's crazy. Like I should want to get treasure, but every single time it being like 200 gil, or not every single time, but again, easily 19 out of every 20 times I would pick up a chest. Like it's not, I'm not exaggerating with that. It's almost all the time.
I got a dark moat. Thanks.
Yeah. I got a knot of rust. Kick ass. I got a potion. Like, you're getting, potions it reminded me of, playing Dark Souls randomizer.
Yeah.
And like when you're at the end of the game and you go to this like incredibly tough encounter and you beat it and you get a throwing dagger, it's like that, but it's intentional. It's not a randomizer. It's the intended effect, even in the Zodiac Age version of this. It's what they want for some reason. And it's like, it gobsmacks me. Like, why would you make this choice? What is the upside here? I've heard a lot of arguments for people who are like, I don't care. But I've never heard anyone be like, this fucking rules.
Right.
Like, why not aim a little bit higher and try to make it cool instead of just making it not that big a deal?
Yeah. To me, it's like, I ultimately probably fall down into like it doesn't actively bother me. So therefore, it is, not something that I think about, because I'm just, it's Final Fantasy XII for you, isn't it? But like, think about what you're giving up, which is a designed experience where engaging with the space matters. It just, I don't like this being a slot machine, because I don't like slot machines.
And some people, like, I was complaining about this on Twitter, which is what started the argument with Will. Like, it was a friendly debate. We found common ground, but somebody was like, yeah, but sometimes it's a really high value thing. Like, that slot machine aspect is really fun to some folk. It's a psychographic thing. Like, the idea that you have a 1 in 20 chance of getting something cool, even if that means you leave and come back to the zone over and over to re-roll that chest, is appealing to some people. And go with God. It's just, to me, it feels that's the worst that game design can be.
Yeah, it replaced something that could have been that could have been more reliable. And yeah, I don't know. I just I can't put myself in the gambler's mindset.
It just doesn't. For a game with
you know,
gambits,
I can I can find 1,000. Okay, finding one cool thing that is slightly above the power level of where I'm at does not make up for the thousands of times that I found 200 gil,
a potion,
a potion. Yeah. So something that is, it's kind of the equivalent of like, oh, it's not worth it to bend over and pick up a penny because you expend more calories than that penny.
It's exactly
could buy
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost never, like near the back half of this game when I was just cruising, I just basically stopped picking up chests unless they were literally in my way.
Yeah.
It was not worth going down a hallway to get to the end where they've maybe put a chest. There was not enough intrinsic or extrinsic reward for it.
Yeah.
And you're leaving a lot on the table with this, like in terms of not just designed experience in terms of reward, but also in terms of encounter design.
Yeah.
The way that video games traditionally, and this is not a new concept, like this is something video games just do, is you put something high value behind a high challenge. So in this game where everything is random and arbitrary, I'm just walking down the street, bada boop. It's raining. Oh no, there's an elemental that can cast the top level lightning spell. And I'm level 10, sir. This sucks. Yeah. If I decide to get past that guy through wit or guile or persistence or strategy, I have no better chance of getting something cool from it.
Yeah.
You could put something cool back there. Like, this makes me feel like I'm running through the streets like, like it's They Live or something. Like why isn't this obvious?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying it to the developers, really. Like, I don't understand the thinking behind this. Like, fucking, and it also affects the way the dungeons work out. Like, I have a real bone to pick with JRPG dungeons in general. This game, they're better than they can be.
Yep.
They have a little bit more visual detail and they make more sense as a space about half the time.
Yes.
So like you're in a mine, it has mining equipment. There's like some debris and stuff. It's not just hallways. You do end up in really weird, uncanny places. Like the very first or second dungeon of the game when you're in the palace and it's like, well, here's our weird T-shaped hallway that leads to two different dead ends. I'm guarding it. Don't ask me any more questions though. Like sense of place or sense of, immersive sim DNA is something that I want some JRPG to be like, yeah, what if this was like a palace, as opposed to hallways?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
there are people out there slamming on their car horns and their steering wheels, like the honk of your horny guy, saying like, not every chest is random, you guys. Not every chest is random. They're different. They aren't differentiated when you look at them. In fact, you only know that they're not random because you look at a guide. Final Fantasy XII.text. That's going to bother some. It's not going to bother others. And
it doesn't matter that they're not random because you get trained. Like a game trains you. Like a very early metaphor that I came up with the show was like Russian roulette with a Gatling gun.
Yeah.
Like you're spinning a huge chamber at a chance of a bullet. How many times can you expect me to spin that chamber?
Right.
Is it infinite? Because if so, I'm not going to do it. That's crazy. You shouldn't ask that.
Yeah.
So big bummer. I really hate the way that the loot system in this works. It interfaces with a couple other systems I don't like. There is a chain system in this where you work up combo chains by killing the same enemy type. There are different classifications of enemies. This makes them drop better loot. This would be cool if you had more options for when you aggroed an enemy.
Yeah.
Like if I'm working on a chain and I'm fighting fish that pop out of the water and then a snake pops up next to me, my little dudes are just going to kill it before I can really do anything and ruin my chain. I didn't really have any control over that. It ends up being the chain is just whether an area is designed with more of the same type of enemies or not.
Chaining to me, it feels like it is entirely put there for farming and grinding.
Yeah.
That's the time when I'm most engaged with it, just hanging out in Golmar Jungle for about 20 minutes whenever I need to buy something expensive. killing the panthers, right?
Yeah. The quaddles.
the curls. Yes.
Curls. Yeah. That is a bummer to me. What this does is it improves the XP gain, all the things that you get, the XP gain you get from it, and the quality of loot. In this game, rather than enemies dropping money, they drop monster parts generally, which you then sell.
Mm-hmm.
You sell these, the game keeps track of where you're at with those universally, not just at an individual shopkeeper. Yeah. So once you've sold all the parts for a recipe, they'll sell you something from something called the bazaar, which is like a esoteric, like the description, it'll be like old wooden stick. Yeah. And they don't know what it is, and you buy it, and it turns out it's a certain monk pole.
Yes.
That you can buy. Typically under value or under market price.
Right. This, I think, was designed to feel like a fun surprise. Just like, you would sell some stuff, and then here's a bazaar. Here's a new bazaar thing, right? However, because gamers are gamers, and also because they decided to put really, really valuable shit behind this and make it so that you can miss out if you sell things in the wrong combinations. And also some of the stuff you sell is used for side quests as stuff to turn in. There is a certain FOMO associated with, okay, I need to double check that something that I'm going to sell is not one of the forbidden items before I sell it. And so like it stops being a fun surprise and more like a system that you grudgingly engage with doing Control F on a wiki page.
Yes. If you want to with that, because you can also just sell everything.
Yeah.
And make your way through the game just fine. You have to get more into guides and luck if you want to do the tough stuff, the super tough stuff in the game.
Yeah.
So on one level, like I respect that it's optional, on another level, it's like the non-optional version is poison.
Yeah.
It's bad design. So I know it's neither here nor there. You cannot sell all, which is a bummer. If you're just selling things, it ends up becoming very tedious to do it.
Tedious was in Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, his little weird little clone is in this one. His little tiny Tim Heidecker bronzer clone. And think about if you want to engage with it in that optimal way, think about what that does to the game experience and the play design. So I can't sell all of my monster dicks. I need to save a certain number of monster dicks because they're needed for the monster dick quest. What is my next course of action? Grind more. Go kill more monsters to get things that aren't monster dicks.
Yeah.
Or get enough monster dicks so I can sell the surplus. Like the way around this is not interesting. It just means go grind more.
It is a machine that you feed time to.
Yes. Which in some ways is just the genre, and that is a selling point for a lot of people. Like, I just want a way to turn today until tomorrow without thinking or feeling any pain. And I get that. I sleep a lot. I'm depressed. I just I understand that as an appeal. It's just not something that appeals to me in video games anymore.
Yeah.
Let's talk about hunts and side quest.
Let's do this. The world is big. There's lots of stuff to do in it that is not the main quest. The primary systematized version of this is the hunts. There are 45 targets you can go after. Many of which that are unlocked when you reach particular areas. This is kind of a story gated thing, but these are very powerful monsters that people have put bounties on, and you have to go and seek them out under particular conditions and take them out. These are almost always, if you engage them at the proper level, they're going to be challenge bosses. Ultimately, up until the kind of the final one of these is the big challenge boss of this game that used to take hours and hours and hours to beat.
Yeah, like you literally buckle up. Yeah, like it was an MMO raid that you did on your own. These are cool. Yep. I like the idea of these. There are nitpicks I have in terms of execution. Like I wish that mechanically, like if they were about combat, I generally really like them.
Yeah.
The ones I did, like, this will be an interesting combat challenge. When they're puzzles, the puzzles are pretty shitty. It's a lot of going and like FedExing.
Yeah.
Like you have to go talk to a certain person or you have to go do find the person to tell you to do the arbitrary thing to make a monster appear. You know, the content of the non-combat action was not very fun to me.
Yeah, that's where I fall too. Yeah.
Like the idea of that is great. You know, like you have to solve a little puzzle. They just forgot to put in good puzzles.
Right.
For it. But the idea of these is really wonderful. Like the idea of you having to prep. I wish that when you went and talked to the person who put out the bounty, they had more useful tactical information.
Yes.
Like what I wanted was, instead of this person's life story about how they hate this bird, I wanted them to be like, hey, the thing you have to watch out for, like this thing's actually no big deal, but the area it's in contains this monster who does this status effect. Yeah. That would give you that cool, like preparing for a hunt, Monster Hunter feeling, you know, that you maybe want. It didn't do that.
No.
Generally. So,
yeah, the rewards for these are really good. You know,
yes.
You know, it'll generally be above what you would get by doing stuff that is in the main story at that particular time. Which is good. Also, doing these in addition to other stuff raises your clan rank. You're in a little Moogle gang.
Run by the same guy who runs the Final Fantasy Tactics Advance one, I think.
Yeah, Mont Blanc.
Little Mont Blanc.
Yeah, and the raising your rank will unlock special goods at the clan provisioner. And, you know, this is how you get some of those really powerful accessories and such.
Yeah, game breaking stuff. Like you get a little belt that gives yourself bubble all the time. You do it from this
bubble belt.
Bubble belt. Bubble beltle.
Something
the last thing I want to mention that I don't think we covered. There's probably other stuff too, but like. So the way that this game does scale and does world, we talked about it being a really big world. One of its big innovations, and something that I recognize as being really cool for the time, but has not aged really well for me, is cities. In this game, they made cities really big. Gone are this is two screens with like somebody walking back and forth saying the king lives in the castle, who's supposed to represent a populace. Yeah. These towns are huge, and they have semi-realistic numbers of people in them, and similar to modern open world games or Western RPGs, the ones that have something to say have a little exclamation point. Everyone else just stands around. So similar to like a Witcher 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
This is cool in terms of giving you the feeling of a town. This is the first time in this genre I felt like I was in a realistically proportioned city. I wish that the random townspeople had better things to say. Yeah. Like the writing in this game is interesting because I think that the plotting and dialogue on the main plot is all pretty good. Well above average, but pretty good in, video game terms. If you go and randomly talk to an NPC, it sucks. There's not, what I wanted to get was more world building on this stuff, but there's like only so many things a refugee can say. Yeah. It sucks being a refugee. And like I saw, your name is refugee. I know what that means. Yeah. This isn't really helpful. It ended up having a similar problem to the treasure chest where like maybe there were people who had interesting things to say, but I had been conditioned by the hundreds of people who just said some bullshit to not talk to them. And this game is very long, took me 42 hours to beat. And that was skipping almost all the NPCs. I would talk to a few people when I first got to a town to get kind of the flavor. Yeah. And then I would not go and talk to everybody because the intrinsic reward was not good enough. The writing was not good.
It ended up, again, falling back to me like a big realistic city to walk through is neat from a flavor perspective, but functionally I just wanted the menu. Just give me the menu.
In the first town, they have those Moogles that will teleport you around to different areas of interest. And I was like, oh, that's great. Like they're just going to be in every town. They're just going to basically be a menu, but they dry up.
The other towns are much smaller. Ends up being the thing. Yeah,
that's true. But still, you still have to walk across like a big long hallway to get to the thing you want, as opposed to a menu. Yeah. So that ended up bumming me out just a tish. So.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a low key friction that comes in, and it ends up feeling not worth the time to stop and talk to the folks.
There's a thing that is one of the philosophical like things with me in terms of what bothers me in games versus people who I talk to about it, and it's again, no judgment. I'm, there's, if something doesn't bother you, I don't want it to bother you. But like I always feel like if something's in a game, it should be interesting or mechanically relevant or something. Like it should, I want things in a game to justify themselves.
Yeah. The space, each person is an opportunity to do something cool and additive.
Yeah. Tell a joke.
Yeah.
Do it like Monkey Island or West of Loathing or something. Tell a joke or have an interesting, scary short story like Tides of Numenera, or Torment, or Disco Elysium.
Yeah.
And those are Western RPG examples. I'm not trying to fight Pokemon. I'm just saying that like it tends to be a difference whether characters have like whether effort is put into the NPCs, whether they're meant to be just a backdrop that like you talk to because you're talking to everybody because that's what playing the game is. Or whether they took that as an opportunity to do something cool.
Yeah.
I want there to be something cool there. I want to cheer for the craft that's happening. I don't want to just be like, that's really, boy, that's not good.
Yeah.
And that's good. And it's an aggregate too. So like, I can imagine someone being like, oh, you're making a big deal about clicking one button and talking to one person, and them not having something interesting to say. They can't all say something interesting. No, but again, like more than 1 out of 20 can.
Yeah.
Like the proportions are really, really not in its favor about this stuff. I am not nitpicking about, I ran into one treasure chest that had a potion. That sucks. I ran into one NPC and they didn't have anything interesting to say. That sucks. It's almost all of them.
It really messes with your risk versus reward. The stakes are kind of low. I am gambling a little bit of time, but that adds up and ultimately becomes friction that makes it so like, there are people I see that they could say something. It's probably not going to, again, it will not be worth the calories to bend down and pick up this penny.
It is very picking up a penny.
Yeah.
And to me, that is a big deal. It cast a pall over the game. It doesn't make me dislike this game. I like the Zodiac Age Final Fantasy XII. I think this is a good game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like it so far because I have all these nitpicks, but we'll get into it. Like I like the story of this game. I generally like the characters. I think that the performances and stuff are very good.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie to watch. It's Star Wars, but it's a fun movie to watch. It's more fun than Star Wars. So I do like this game, but those things bug me, and if it doesn't bug you, I'm not trying to make it bug you. That's valid.
Something that makes me stick out kind of as we transition into talking about the aesthetics of this is, this is the only Final Fantasy game, that we've talked about, and probably one of the only ones where the mechanics discussion would be an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mechanic to this. Maybe 8. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
I just and that's what stands out to me. This is an intricate game, and there's a lot to bite into in a way that is kind of not necessarily the case for a lot of games of this vintage and of this stripe. Yeah,
is necessarily not the case. Like it's almost none of those games have this kind of mechanical complexity. Even if I don't feel like they hit all those home runs, they're doing something at least more interesting. Even if it ends up being gobsmacking, like why they would do something like that treasure thing, it's something to talk about as opposed to like Rogue Galaxy where they just didn't. Like, well, I don't know.
Man,
like systems,
really
video games, that's for something that's nobody's business but mine. That's not my business.
They're really picking on that Rogue Galaxy guy. He must work there.
It's the fucking wretched game. This was the generation which I was like, I don't like this genre. They're bad now. The PS2 has bad JRPGs generally. This one is an exception, I think.
Yeah. Let's talk about the aesthetics. This is an excellently localized game.
It's incredible.
Oh, and this is go ahead.
Yeah. Like learning the stuff that was result of localization is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
In this game. Like I was very impressed. This is maybe one of the times I'm most impressed with localization in a video game.
Yeah. Like I want a Legends of localization about this. That would be amazing to me. So this was localized by Alexander O. Smith. Generally, I can't say enough good stuff about the game's writing in the story. Because Ivalice shit happens. The scenario was done by Yasunori Matsuno. There's really cool intrigue going on. In the grand scheme of things, your characters don't matter very much until the end when you start interfacing with the gods and stuff, because ultimately JRPGs are going to have to regress to the mean. And the actual like cadence, the kind of the valence of the speech is done in this really excellent, not quite Shakespearean, but heightened, heightened dialect, let's say, that ends up like being just interesting to look at and read and have delivered.
It, to me, doing the kind of vaguely yield language and something papers over awkwardness.
Yes.
That happens sometimes in this genre. Like, these are big, messy melodramas about teens and their big teen feelings and killing gods, generally as a genre.
Yeah.
That's a taste thing, but for me, that's not inherently interesting to me. Adding this little layer of like Game of Thronesification of the dialogue, making it have this formal and poetic kind of quality to it, makes it not feel awkward. It's like an additional filter that makes it feel not natural, but not uncannily unnatural.
I mean,
like it puts it into a recognizable mode.
Well, I think what you're talking about is it makes it feel like a performance,
Yeah.
Even in Final Fantasy Tactics, where nothing is where nothing is voiced outside of the stuff they added for the War of the Lions version, this mode of writing that is intrinsic to the Ivalice stories does feel if not quite literary, right? Because we're not talking about Disco Elysium, we're not talking about Pathologic, but it does feel theatrical. Which is just a different mode to look at this stuff that papers over quite a bit.
And that's exactly it. Like we're still dealing with characters that are archetypical.
Yes.
Like I like Balthier. Balthier is not crazy deep or anything. He's not a new thing. He's not Harrier Dubois.
Right.
He's an archetype. He is, he's a character class. But by adding this performance to it, you end up having a kind of a greater sense of like it's underlying the artifice in a good way.
Yes.
As opposed to having a bunch of characters who speak naturally but are very shallow, like because they're just honorable but good. So they end up feeling like weird robots to them. This is like it's almost like it knows it's a video game.
Yeah.
In this respect. Something that is crazy to me that is part of the localization is that it was a localization choice to give characters from different areas of this world different accents.
It is such a huge deal. The fact that Bhujerbans are German, the fact that Arcadians are English, the fact that Dalmaskins are American. Like, if a big world with different nations will have people who speak in different ways.
It blows my fucking mind. Like the original, the Japanese voice acting for this is just everyone just speaking.
Yeah.
There's no sense of that difference. That does so much. And I was very surprised to find out that was an Alexander O. Smith decision.
Yeah.
Like he's like, yeah, we're going to do this right. Like we're going to, differentiate these world places. We're going to get theater actors, so not video game voiceover artist or like anime actors like the stable. We're going to take people from the theater. Acting's a thing, right? Like my girlfriend is a voice actress. Like that's, aspiring voice actress. That's what she wants to do. And she's taken courses and like classes and stuff for it. And the people from the big voice acting kind of schools and institutions and stuff, their number one piece of advice is be an actor. Like
that comes first. It really does.
Yeah. Like it is a skill set. It's not just something everyone can do because they can make a funny voice.
Yeah.
It's similar when everyone's like, I'm just going to start a restaurant. And it's like, no, people go to school for this. It's a real thing. This is a craft. Take people who actually do it. Yeah. And they did. Like I hate Vaughn and I hate his voice actor and I hate his performance. I hate everything about his character. But he's not, if you think it is a good goal to make a Vaughn, that character is a Vaughn.
Like he is created. It is it is a dialogue between the actor and the words that they're given. They're engaging with it in a different way than just you have the voice that matches the kind of character that we're aiming for. Like this is a deep voice person, so let's put Yuri Lowenthal on it.
I don't. It's so weird that like, I agree that this is awesome. It says a lot about the medium, not the genre, the medium, that this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, this feels like this should be the minimum thing you can ask for.
Yeah.
You know, actors doing a good voice performance that sounds, that sounds professional and is paced out. There are like pauses in the dialogue and stuff. It just does a lot. The presentation for this is really good.
Yes.
That extends to lots of parts of it. The visual design is really good. Really weirdly, like, this is not taking its cues from anywhere we usually get. I'm always really happy when something isn't just dragons or pagodas.
Yeah.
This is taking its architectural cues from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Where like Turkey and the Mediterranean and like things like that. Like, that is what the buildings and architectural design is.
Yeah. And it's a huge amount of characterization, right? Like, that was one of the things that really won me over to this early on when I was reading about the development of this. Like, just like, no, like, we are fascinated with with where Istanbul, like the role that it, that it plays as this huge crossroads, where European bleeds into Middle East. Setting it here, it's kind of a perfect stand-in for this place that is influenced by a whole bunch of other things and has its own identity, right?
Yes.
And you end up venturing to places that have lots of different kind of cues, but Rabanastre as the center being taken from that, where it is neither European nor Asian, I think is a hugely good decision on their part.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Like, it's just not something you see in video games, and you definitely don't see in video games often, and you definitely didn't at the time, and certainly didn't in this series.
Yeah.
And never would again. The series is no longer interested in real world inspired places. Like, everything is a very, very colorful sci-fi blend.
Yeah.
Now, this is the last gasp of a realistic world influence.
Yeah.
Here. The soundtrack is great.
Love it.
There's Hitoshi Sakamoto, the composer of Final Fantasy Tactics, Vagrant Story, Tactics Ogre. Tons of little musical quotes from Final Fantasy Tactics every single time, bypassed my ears and got to my lizard brain. And I'm like, Final Fantasy Tactics. That's a good feeling.
Just the theme for Rabanastre, so many earworms in this.
Yeah, it's real good. Like, the music and everything is very good in this.
Yeah. Development on this began in 2000. Yasunori Matsuno, Final Fantasy Tactics guy, Vagrant Story guy, Tactics Ogre guy. He was one of the directors working alongside Ito. I need to grab that guy's name. But yeah, he was co-directing this. He was apparently really difficult to work with on this project. There are lots of stories about this, whether it was just too much game for him to lead, whether, Square's leadership was conducive to him. This was also complicated by the fact that this was right around the time when Hironobu Sakaguchi left Square to form Mistwalker, and just a ton of people left. Matsuno refused to come into work for a month because so much of his team, departed.
Yeah. He left citing illness. There's some confusion over this. Like, he came out later and said, like, yes, I was sick, but I'm so sorry for letting everyone down.
Yeah.
And stuff. There's weird Japanese business culture things at play here that I do not, cannot necessarily grok.
Yeah, I have no insight into that, so I can't make a statement about like what of this is true.
How reasonable and how true it is. There are a lot of urban legends about the development of this. Like, it's at the time this came out, it was the longest a game had been developed or been in development. It held that record for a while. So it was certainly a troubled development of a kind. But then there's also interviews and stuff where we're like, no, we basically made the thing we wanted to make. Yeah. There's also people undercutting that message as well. So it's a little bit confusing. I want to give a shout out. Jeremy Parrish, friend of the show, did a very long interview with the original leads for this when the Zodiac Age first came out for Polygon. That is a great read.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I recommend giving it a chance. It was cited in Wikipedia because I was trying to find one of the biggest urban legends of this, and this would come up later, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's
now. Is about Vaughn, the choice of Vaughn. People rightly hate Vaughn, and I think that people in their heads made up something that made sense. which is that Bosch was originally meant to be the main character, and that damn executive meddling made them have, oh, no, we need a Bishan fuckboy to be the main character who's youthful. We can't have somebody who's 28.
Yeah, we need to hit the right demographic quadrant.
Yeah, the demographic quadrant of 11 to 15 through this. So the idea is they just switched it, and the way it has always been told to me is pitting Matsuno, who the good Matsuno who wanted Bosch, versus those mustache twirling execs. This is not true. No, basically, even though Jeremy's thing, which does not say it's not true, is cited as truth for it on the Wikipedia. So a good don't trust Wikipedia thing. But that change was actually made very, very early in development to make it Devon, and it was not something that the creators did under duress.
Right. So Vaughn and Bosch were always separate characters. They just made Vaughn's initial conception was older and just kind of like more rough cut than he ultimately was. But they were always separate. Yeah. Yes.
And instead they changed Vaughn for largely because of marketing reasons, but it's not something it's not a creative versus marketing.
No.
Thing. Yeah. They wanted to hit the demographic. I don't know what you name I'm sure that there is a name for the character that Vaughn is, the type of happy-go-plucky, high energy, enthusiastic kid.
Right.
I hate it. I hate Vaughn, and I hate spending time with a character who's like that. I don't want to do it anymore, ever again.
It's one of those things where the way Vaughn is expressed, I don't care for. It doesn't bother me as much as you. Having your main character be just a person, who is was displaced by the war, and is not. Is basically nobody in this world and is a bystander to everything that is happening, making them kind of a player, viewer, surrogate. That reinforces the things that are cool about the story, which is these great forces move irrespective of you. The fact that they made him, the plucky, I'm going to be a sky pirate. Basically Tails kind of guy gets in the way of that. It stops that idea from being as cool as it can be to me.
What also it leads to tons of dissonance because he has no reason to be there.
Right.
For a lot of it. At one point, he literally looks at the camera and goes, "I'm just along for the ride." Yeah. And I'm like, man, that sucks. You have no stakes in here. And don't even get me started on fucking Pinello, who has no reason to be there. Having characters who don't really have a personality, and are not tied to the plot very well. Everything that ties Vaughn into the plot feels patched on, grafted. And it ill befits a lord. To graft. It just it was oh man, oh yeah, his brother was also there. It's so funny. But every time he opens his mouth, I just want to die inside. I really, really hate his voice actor, and I hate that archetype. I don't want to deal with I don't want to deal with a Tails. I'm not an 11 to 15-year-old. I don't understand what the appeal of a Tails is.
Yeah.
I want stories about adults doing adult shit, or kids way in over their heads and not being happy about it. I want a story about just a happy kid who just rolls with it.
That isn't fiction. Come on.
Yeah, that's not drama. He's a horrible little shit. We'll talk about the other characters when we run into them. They're all better than him.
Yes,
except perhaps Pinello, who's fucking awful. And I had no idea why Pinello's doing in this game.
Yeah,
she in the development, she did get a lot of stuff cut from her. The main Ito, I think it's Ito, that was his favorite character in the game based on early writing drafts, and they cut tons of Pinello stuff.
Which sucks.
Used to have a personality.
Yeah. Like we said, there was the co-director at the beginning, Hiroyuki Ito. He stayed on after Matsuno left. He previously had directed Final Fantasy VI and 9, so no slouch. That, that is kind of the core there. He was the one who created the active battle system, though he was not the designer, or the active time battle system. He was not the designer on the active dimension battle system. That was a different systems developer. To fill the absence, because this is a big game and they needed multiple directors, the visual director, the art director, Hiroshi Minagawa, stepped up to kind of co-direct and finish out the project. Minagawa had worked alongside Matsuno since basically the beginning. His basically the person who is responsible for the look of the Ivalice games for anything that Matsuno has touched.
Yes. Yeah. When they started off, they wanted to move away from turn-based random battles, specifically random battles. They wanted to have enemies on the field here from the very beginning of development, which kind of ends up solving, a curve for this. Like the fact that there are just enemies on the field is a first for this series and impressive for Final Fantasy and impressive for when development began for this. Like this came out the same year Oblivion did. You know, like having a big open world with enemies on the field is not actually a big deal by 2006. It was by 2000. If this did not have as long and troubled a development, it might have been a real innovator in that respect. Not just a series or genre innovator, but an actual medium innovator for it. But they wanted to do that. They also wanted to have like a lot of different cut features, one of which was co-op, where a character could just pick up the controller and control one of your extra guys. This was cut for technical reasons. They ended up having a lot of problems with when cutscenes would trigger.
Yes.
They did not know what to do if one member of your party was on one side of the map and another member of the party walked past a barrier that triggered a cutscene. This also influenced the gambit system.
Yes.
Like it was a lot of work to get characters to not wander off and start story stuff. It's not as bad as it could be. This game does have a lot of, you do a cutscene, then you walk down a hallway and another cutscene starts. Like Max Payne 3 shit. I can understand that being really hard if you had independent characters.
Yes.
Like 3 Max Paynes.
You're sharing a screen. This isn't, it can't be like playing Divinity Original Sin multiplayer,
Yes. Where one character, and that game only has cutscenes at chapter breaks. Like a character will get into dialogue, but it does all of its story through talking.
Right.
As opposed to showing. So,
so like I said, development took a lot longer than planned, for those technical and organizational reasons. It came out crazy late. It basically little over a year after the Xbox 360 came out, kind of making it a capstone on the PS2. It is still wild to think that this was released on the PS2. There used to be such a big difference between the games released at the beginning of the console's life cycle and at the end of it.
Yeah. The one of the things that was a cool nugget from that Jeremy Parish thing is how the long development cycle of this whole thing basically is responsible for the fucked status of modern Square.
Oh yeah.
Like they're still shaking it off. This taking forever meant, Final Fantasy XIII was originally supposed to be a PS2 game. They had to shunt that over to PS3, which they did on less time. We all know how that turned out. Like that game has gotten a reevaluation in recent years, but I'm still on team. Like this is trash, and then that just put them on this delay cycle. So whatever you think of modern Square, in both because of Final Fantasy XII successes and failures, it is responsible for what Square is now. Basically.
The 1-2 punch of Final Fantasy XII's trouble development, plus the economic Armageddon that happened when Square decided, hey, let's make a Hollywood animation studio.
What if we made a horrible movie?
What if we made a horrible movie and basically as a commercial for like, hey, hire us to help you make good movies, and spend all of the money in the world on that? That kind of backfooted them for an entire generation. Square is not just Final Fantasy. There's other stuff. There was other stuff that came around, but like, it is foolish to believe that this isn't the central pillar, right?
Really interestingly, this game has aged well for within the context of the series. At the time it came out, it was real big with critics. Critics really liked it. I think you kind of see the forward looking. I feel like whether they said it or not, intuitively they could understand that they were basically doing Gambit system shit in their head. But to players, there was just it Kirby Air rides. It plays itself. I know that game doesn't it only kind of plays itself. Don't at me.
Every time you bring that up, there's just there's a great chorus.
It can play itself. You can do more than that, but it can also play itself. So people are like, oh, this plays itself, without realizing like you weren't really there in the first place. So fans did not like it. Really just the Gambit system. That was like the main, almost the only point of complaint. I remember living it. Like I would talk to my friends and stuff when this came out, this being the last Final Fantasy I bought day and date one and was excited for, like all, my friends were all playing it as well. And I remember having conversations, and even at the time me being like, yeah, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
It wasn't my big bugbear my first playthrough, but I wasn't as sold on it as I am now.
It was different in a genre that is very much about comfort.
It's different.
Even if we didn't realize it, the fact that we got 3 entries in a row that were, that all basically had the same gameplay conventions. The PS2 era for Square was great, right? Or at least for the PS1 era for Final Fantasy was great and comforting, and to not only have this but wait so long for it and have it come out and be this like, hey, basically be like a living critique of that thing people were clamoring for. I can see that building resentment, even if I don't entirely agree with or live in it.
It's the thing that makes me respect it so much now. Like the thing that unlocked it for me as a thing I admire is considering it like a critique of that, like realizing how it lays bare how I had been spending my time. This is a game that's ultimately on my side of, in a lot of ways, on my side of this issue.
Yeah. Well, you like to see, even something as big and ossified as Square be capable of self-reflection.
Yeah. And I think of this company based on trust and whether I like their decisions. So the same, and they'd been racking up L's at this point, like things like them not thinking that gamers would re-roll chests until they got optimal loot. Like, come on, man, that makes me question your judgment. Like, what's wrong with you? Them doing something like this that is actually canny is cool to see. As a company that's very important to me in my childhood.
Yeah.
There's a direct sequel to this that I have never played
because it's about Vaughn and Pinello.
Yeah, hey kids, do you love Vaughn and Pinello? And do you want to see what happens if he became an air pirate? You can. It's on the DS. Yeah. It's Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings, a real-time strategy game that you were encouraged to play entirely with a stylus. Developed by a different developer, got a lot of 8 out of 10s.
Yeah.
I read into it in doing research for this episode, but it wasn't enough to where I was like, yes, I want to play this. Even though I am more in the pocket for RTSs than JRPGs these days. Yeah. I just don't want to spend more time with Vaughn.
The International Zodiac Job System version of this released in Japan in 2007. This has kind of always been a thing, the international version being a revision coming out everywhere but here. I guess it was always a thing up until around this point. This added the Zodiac jobs, New Game Plus, New Game Minus, a trial system, which I haven't engaged with and won't talk about.
It's like the basic, just for completionist's sake, it's waves of combat and allows you to jump the treasure curve.
Yes.
New Game Minus is also a new term to this. What that is allows you to start a new game where you cannot gain experience and you cannot level up. I like the idea of a New Game Minus.
Yes.
It's like a soul level 1 kind of run. I would never do that, but I like that it exists.
Yes. Like the spirit. Because they know how people play this game.
Yeah. It's basically similar to the Gambits. It's codifying a challenge mode. Like with Final Fantasy Tactics, there have been a million challenge modes for that forever. This is just adding one from the menu.
Yeah.
The International Zodiac Job System version is significantly less advanced than the Zodiac Age version.
Yes.
We talked about the improvements a lot in this, but they're huge. Being able to do 2 jobs is really big. The fast forward going from double time to 4 times is huge. I don't know I did the minimum of this game. My play clock was 42 hours. If I didn't have the fast forward, it probably would have been like 60.
Yes.
It would have been 18 hours of just watching animations that I, 2 seasons of Better Call Saul that I would have just not had. So right. 4 times is the correct amount. I want that backported into every single JRPG. And
I want that. I want that more so than the you are automatically level 99 with max stats stuff.
Me too. I don't want to watch a boring movie that I have to take long breaks from. I want to make everything happen faster. I also really, I don't know if this comes up. Those ports of those things should all have, there are 1/4 the encounters, but you get 4 times the XP.
Yep.
That would also be a good balance. Make me spend less time to get there.
A lot about those ports that are really cheap, actually. Yeah.
It sucks. It just, it dry from a game design standpoint, I'm just like, man, the best anyone can ever offer me with stuff like that is like, yeah, it just didn't bother me. Like nobody can ever say like, yeah, that fucking made me pumped. You know, I loved that I just had to do this many battles.
Yeah.
Like it just, I didn't see it. Doesn't look like anything to me. You know? Let's get into it.
So we open up on a moment of celebration. Dalmasca, specifically Rabanastre, the capital city. It's an all-out celebration because Princess Ashe has married Prince Rassler from Narbradia. Rassler.
His name is Rassler. This is a nitpick. I hate Rassler's haircut. He's the only one who looks like this.
He doesn't look like he's from this game.
No, he doesn't. He's a weird like anime doll that came to life. It's the boy. So later when he constantly appears as a force ghost and like they tug at my heartstrings with this bad haircut, like it's very difficult for me.
Yeah. Oh man. But this is a grand union between these two borderland kingdoms, Dalmasca and Nabradia. But kind of shortly after this, there are clouds of war. Captain Bosch von Ronsenberg, he walks into this war room saying like, hey, the city of Nabudis has fallen to the Arcadians, this grand empire to the north and west. And both Bosch and Rossler are going to go to the front.
Yes. So a battle comes to a head at Nalbina Fortress. There are fighter craft dogfighting. We talked about this. I mentioned this earlier in the intro, but like it's very Star Wars.
Yes.
This game in general and plot, but they say Star Wars was not an influence. They were more influenced by the Hidden Fortress, the original samurai movie that Star Wars was influenced by. And the sound effects and the dogfighting and stuff, like a lot of the ship designs really look like Star Wars. Like this is the best Star Wars thing.
Yes.
I don't think there's a piece of media other than perhaps the Christmas special that is as good as this, that has the Star Wars name adjacent to it.
Yeah.
It feels very Star Wars.
Hidden Fortress is good. It feels way more modern than it ought to. But yeah, no, I agree. This is there are Star Wars beats in this. It veers off of that path about halfway through, which is welcome. But even when it is doing Star Wars stuff, it's doing Ivalice stuff too. Yeah,
it just the special effects and sound effects. Like ship design never shakes that. They're fighting. Bosch tells Rossler that they must withdraw, but he will not. He won't go through with it. However, something called the paling shield fails here. They don't really explain what this is, which I like. I don't need to know. And then Rossler's shot in the chest with an arrow. He died.
Yes.
Rip to him. Bosch is different. We see the funeral. Ashe cries over the casket. Even though this was arranged marriage and they were not married for very long, they loved each other quite a bit.
Yeah, I like how this is like the November Rain video, where over the course of 5 minutes, we go from a wedding to a funeral.
It's very November Rain. It's very Nalbina Rain. And Nalbinus Rain. Nalbinus.
And then we get some exposition. So Dalmasca is this independent city-state caught between these two empires. Arcadia is encroaching toward Rosaria, and Nabradia was the first to fall because they were nearer, and Dalmasca is next.
Yes. The Damascan military has learned there will be an attempt on the king's life. So that's kind of the setup, and then we do a prequel thing here, where Bosch and Vossler wake up Rex, the 17-year-old soldier who's our point of view character here, part of the retinue. He was knocked out in combat, and this is our combat and movement tutorial.
Right.
They basically tell you how to fight and do the very basic parts of this. This is not gambits, and this is not license board. This is this is what an aggression line looks like.
Yeah.
Level
Nuts and bolts. At one point, Rex has to stay behind to deal with some soldiers. And when he gets to the treaty room, that staying behind was setting up him walking in to find everybody in the treaty room dead, including the king.
Yep. And not including Bosch, who stabs Rex in the gut.
Yeah.
He says the king was a traitor who would sell Damaska out to the Empire. Rex fades out, and he says Vaughn aloud. He says his brother's name, and he sees Vane's men capturing Bosch captive. We'll find out who Vane is later.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. This is going to cost Dalmasca its sovereignty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one of their own would rebel against the Empire like this. We're going to have to, press down on you. And Bosch here says, we'll never bow down to you. And Vane, responds, the people of Dalmasca will hate you for it.
Yep. This is the path of least resistance.
Yes.
Here is when it's just like cool Empire political stuff. It's not because he wants to use magic rocks to turn into a big wrestler guy.
He was tricked by the devil. Yeah.
Yeah, tricked by the devil into using magic rocks, which is basically what every Final Fantasy turns into.
Kind of.
This one is good because it takes longer to be about magic rocks. God, they love those magic rocks though.
Yeah.
We switch into this little history scene. These are narrated by a character who this game calls the Marquis instead of the Marquis.
I complained
Never
about
doesn't bother me.
I complained about that once. Apparently, that is the pronunciation in England.
It is a pronunciation.
Yes,
but not where this was
also
localized.
It also bothers me. Yeah.
Yeah. They also use Dynast King as a portmanteau of dynasty and king. So even if people love the Marquis, but yeah, he does this narration here talking about the fallout of this event.
Yeah.
They try to put down, there were calls for prayer instead of resistance. Princess Ash has killed herself. Bosch and the military leadership have all been charged with treason. Dalmasca will surrender, no terms.
Right.
Then we flash forward. What's an interesting thing about the release of this game originally, this is a demo of it was released with Dragon Quest VIII.
Mm-hmm.
That was just this shitty sewer dungeon.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst demos that I've played for a Square game.
It's not persuasive.
It's not persuasive at all. I remember getting the demo. It's why I bought Dragon Quest VIII.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been checked out ever since 7. Like I was like, I'm not going to play another Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest 7 fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I played 8. I liked 8, but I got 8 because of this demo. And it is not a good demo.
No.
Yeah.
So we're introduced to Vaughn. He's in the sewer killing some rats. And this is 2 years after the incident at Nalbina. He's been orphaned. He lost his only family member, and he is a street urchin who is just kind of operating, doing small jobs for like shopkeepers and stuff.
He's Aladdin. He's got a vest. He shaves his chest. He wears a lot of bronzer. He's real plucky. He's real blank. Like he doesn't have a whole lot to him. He's the one who tells the hero, like, no, you have to keep going. Like that's basically his role in the entirety of this story.
Yeah.
And then if you thought that was too engaging and complicated, he has Pinello, who's there to back him up every step of the way. And every once in a while be like, Vaughn. And that's it. Like make little non-jokes. They do these little sketches with each other where they're like, oh, so finally you got to tell me something for a change. What the? They do hilarious Waiter Brothers shit all the time. Nobody likes it. Me or the other characters in the game. I do not know why they have not been drowned in a river. I hate both these characters, and they should never have been in a piece of fiction.
They should forget them at the gas station.
Yeah. They got to get dropped off like Walter White's daughter. Just put them at a fire department and go. There's something, as my ongoing lifelong quest to understand why I connect and disconnect with different kinds of media. The JRPG point of view character should be a young teen with big dreams and huge feelings. Thing fucking kills me. I am so done with this archetype.
God. Yeah.
I just don't want to spend time with these guys. It's not, if your little guy goes, yeah, let's do it. I just don't have any interest. I'm out.
I want to wall Marshall McLuhan up somewhere. Like, in an abandoned coke oven, just toss him down an oubliette, seal that bad boy up, put him in a cistern. The hero's journey, just as a cited as a framework, being identified, and kind of put out there as like, hey, this is what all media is. And then we just say, oh yeah, no, it's just the hero's journey. It follows a template. I want him to be amontillado.
And Campbell. It'd be great because you could do Joseph Campbell first.
Oh yeah, I got those mixed up. McLuhan's the medium is the message guy.
Well, that's why what I thought you were saying was like the fact that this medium invokes the hero's journey. That's it. That's all they need to do. No. So I kind of could figure out where you're going with McLuhan stuff, but yeah, it's Joseph Campbell. It's the fact that every one of these things just has to be an archetype, and one of them has to be a plucky young hero who refuses the call and meets with a mentor and all that jazz. And just he doesn't make any jokes. He doesn't say anything smart or interesting. He has no character traits. Like I don't know what there is to. If you knew Yvonne in real life, he would be like a homeschooled kid who you did not want to hang out with.
Right.
Nothing of interest. No incident, please. Ice milk. Like I think he's a really bad character.
And people argue like, oh, Vaughn is just Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker was more interesting than this.
I also, and that's not going to be, that mileage will spend differently for different people. That's not going to spend a lot for me.
I'm not expecting you to go along with it, but it's just like, to say that as an excuse is, I don't know.
Yeah, it's inaccurate, but also for me, like I would like more interesting than Luke Skywalker as well.
Yeah.
And that ends up in like medium differences where like, spending 6 hours with Luke Skywalker is very different than spending 42 hours with Vaughn,
Yeah.
So he sees some Arcadian soldiers roughing up a merchant. He pickpockets one of them. It's very Aladdin. His partner, Pinello, doesn't like it. She's reasonable and doesn't want him to end up in jail, but he's devil may care, little fun boy. The little fun thief monkey child that they've had for many of their games now. As is happening, Vaughn sees an airship flying overhead. This is showing that they are under occupation.
Yeah.
But he's like, someday I'll be free, mister. I'll be a sky pirate with my own ship. I'll just go wherever I want. You have no interest. You have no internal life. What would that mean? You're not, that's not who you are. You're a container that a personality hasn't been poured into.
There is so much more interesting stuff that they can do. There are stories that can be told about a refugee, about somebody, who was oppressed under the thumb of an empire,
it's weird. He's too positive.
Yeah.
Like he's not wearing his trauma at all. He's just like, let's do it. Like, and he eventually gets that way. At first he starts off a little bit melancholy, but he's just so unrelentingly positive that it ceases to be a story about trauma with him.
Yeah.
I do like that Joe DiMaggio is their boss.
Or you mean John DiMaggio?
Yeah, John DiMaggio. Very similar. They spell and pronounce their names differently, but
One's a baseball player. One is one of the more storied voiceover artists that we have.
You don't know that he doesn't play baseball.
Well, you got me there.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
He plays Miguelo. He's their boss. Just coordinating the efforts of all these Earthful Dodgers. Pinello says, "Hey, Miguelo needs some help over at his store. He's handling the food for the Imperial Consul's arrival, and the person handling the shipment hasn't come back. Miguelo is a Benga, the lizard man."
Yes, we're the lizard creatures. If you like the extra races in Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, they're here.
Yeah.
So you go over to the Sand Sea Bar and talk to Kites. It says that all shipments through the Dalmasca Easterland have been stopped because of a monster. This is introducing you to the hunt system, where you get your first mark here, the Rogue Tomato.
I love the Rogue Tomato.
I like how a lot of the monsters in this are little cuties. Like, that's real great.
The baby cactuars that you find.
Yep. The boss fight that's just like 5 rogue tomatoes, basically. That's real cute.
Yeah. So you got to go deal with this so the crates can come through. And when you try to leave the city, the Imperial Guards try to stop you. Again, this is a land occupied, but you present a writ from Miguelo saying like, hey, do you want to be responsible for, there being no food at your boss's party? And they let you through.
Yep. So you go to Delmasker Easterland, which is your intro zone. It's just a big desert. There are a couple of hills. There are wolves. There's a big T-Rex that's hanging around who's not aggressive at you, kind of signaling that something, if it is above your level, will usually not hunt you down. Again, doesn't apply to elementals who are big fuck yous in this game. And what it's trying to do, characters will eventually start saying this, but there's even this early, there's a accessory you can get that allows you to use Libra. Which is the scan ability in Final Fantasy. Like, look at an enemy. It's never been more important in a Final Fantasy game than this one. Like, you got to be able to see what enemy you're dealing with. And in terms of, I knew there was a mechanical thing we were missing when we were talking about this in the generalities. It makes traps show up.
Yes.
For some reason, this game has traps. They're just little glowing spots you don't step on, but your party members will not avoid them.
Right.
I hate them. I hate it as an addition. It just wastes your time.
It feels like they didn't finish developing it.
Yeah. But you always want Libra on for monster reasons, which means you can see the traps as well.
Yeah.
And you go fight the rogue tomato.
He's not hard. He's a basic enemy, but halfway through he'll run away from you. Like, he'll jump off of a cliff and start, trailing you through other enemies, aggroing you. I think this is a very canny kind of demonstration that movement and world position end up mattering. Like, you got to go around and get them. Like, this is not just a modal thing.
Well, it's also teaching you about some MMO principles of like developing a train. Or is that's the phrase, right? When you got a bunch of enemies. Chasing you?
Good. Yeah.
Thank you. I knew the MMO vocab. After, when you go to leave the area, Vaughn sees some Galbina lilies to take back to the city because he likes that flower. When you get back there, the guards won't let you in, and some chocobos trample his lilies.
This feels like a metaphor for something.
Yeah. Oh man. And Miguelo has to come and say, like, no, he's with me.
Yeah.
He can come through.
Yeah. Once you get inside, the console's parade has started. And we get introduced. Well, we saw him in the intro, but this is the proper introduction of Vane Solidor, one of the sons of the Emperor of Arcadia. He rides in. He's a pretty boy. And he gets to his pulpit, and the crowd is against him at first. He gives his speech to them, and they're shouting at him. Yeah.
He wins them over. Like, he makes a persuasive speech in this, like, you don't like the Empire, I get it, but we're going to make the quality of living better.
Yeah. We're going to preserve the peace. Yeah. We're going to preserve the peace that your king fought so hard.
And then Vane goes to leave here, and Miguelo greets him. He's like, oh, I couldn't even presume to address you by name. You're a prince. He's like, I'm not a prince. I'm just an elected official. I'm just a citizen of Rabanastra. We're going to hang out and drink until you call me by name. Yeah. He's really playing good cop here.
Yeah. I'm not your boss. I'm more like a boss buddy.
Yeah. Pull up a beanbag. Vaughn sees through this though. And he's like, no, I'm going to go to the Imperial Palace and steal something. Everyone's going to be doing this feast. I'm going to go take something. Penilla, who's like, I don't know about that, baby. He's like, no. This all belongs to us. Yeah. They are an invading force. Fuck these guys.
I'm going to rob that guy.
Yep.
Yeah. So Vaughn knows that there is an old timer down in Lowtown, the kind of the subterranean parts of the city, who will help him. Who will know how to get into the palace. Goes and talks to old Dallin, who tells him, "Hey, there's this magically sealed door that'll get you into the treasury. But in order to open it, I need you to power up this crescent stone that'll make it work. To do that, you're going to need a sunstone from over in the Giza Plains."
Yes. So you have to go there. You go to the Giza Plains. Again, very simple. We got snakes. We got hyenas. There are a couple of harder enemies. I really like the design of Slaven, which are these big bipedal, like, rocks with legs. And this is also introducing you to aggressive beef gates. The T-Rex would not fight you, but there are werewolves around here who will kill you.
Oh, yeah. They'll rip your limb from limb.
Yep. I think this is something that was objectively a shitty design in the original version that is saved by the Zodiac Age.
Agreed.
If the last time I saved was at a save point and I just happened to walk into an area and there's a monster and it just one-shots me, that is bad design. Yeah. With a game with this kind of consequence. The fact that you can just reload and then just not go into that room makes it okay.
Yes.
It is fixed. I don't know why they chose to do it the way they did it. This is better.
Yeah.
You go to this village in the center of Giza Plains where there are nomads who live there. And what they do, this all seems like it's going to be incredibly important.
Yep.
It's not. This is a minor subplot about magical stones. They use these sunstones where there are these like big obelisks that charge them up. That happens. So they sent out a kid. They're like, hey, we sent out a kid to go charge up the stones. If you go find them, you can have one.
Right.
Go do it. And you do it. Penelo joins you. So you have another party member. You go find him, this kid. He's got an injured leg and he'll give you a sunstone, but you have to finish his work. So you have to go to the various big obelisks and charge them up. It's just a task. There's nothing really to it.
Yeah.
You get back to Lowtown with your sunstone and old Dolan says, hey, there's another area in the Garum Scythe waterway down where you hunted rats. They'll go to the palace basements.
Yes.
Go there and you'll find a secret door to the treasury.
So the Garum Scythe waterway is not really eventful. You're just fighting bats and rats. This is the part that was the demo. Really no interest to this. There are some like bigger enemies, these toad kind of dudes, but they're not doing like status effects right now. There's really no reason to prioritize one over the other. You're just kind of waiting until their HP drains. We get a cutaway to a couple of different things that are happening here. The rebels are getting into the sewers here, organizing their own attacks on the palace. They're led by Vossler, who was from the introduction of the game. He was there alongside Bosch and Rossler.
Yep, and two eccentric-looking people arrive on a hover bike as well. So everything is converging here. This is the place to be.
Yes.
It's worth noting now for this episode, the rest of this episode and next episode, most of these dungeons, that's what the content's going to be.
Yeah.
You fight bats and rats, and then we're going to move on. Like, if there's a marquee enemy or a new status effect that's introduced and bosses we're going to slow down on, for most of this, we're just going to explain the gimmick and go.
Yeah, each dungeon has like chaff, each dungeon has like mid enemies, and then each dungeon has like specialized threats. And that's pretty much how it breaks out.
Yep. And the mid enemies and the chaff do not require very much of you. Yeah. You don't have to stop, so we're not going to stop.
Right.
So you get through the servants area into Damasca Palace, and you have to have a guy distract, like a dude does you a solid and distracts the guards. You can walk up past them to do like a weird little stealth sequence. There are all these little bespoke systems in the intro to this game that never show up again.
Yep.
Where you yell as a distraction to lure guards to new joints in their weird, this is like a palace, like, Echo, or what was that game we played?
Oh yeah. Echo was the name of it with the space palace. Yeah.
It's just a big empty place full of weird hallways, but not played for horror, just taken seriously. And there's somebody's like, they see you and you can yell and then they'll come over and stand at another node. You just reposition guards. Eventually to reach the specific seal that your stone will react with that you can get into the treasury, the secret room.
Yeah. And the centerpiece here is this statue that has a strange orange rock in the place of its head. And so obviously this is the valuable thing. When Vaughn goes to grab it, these two strangers walk in and interrupt him. These are the people who arrived on the hover bike earlier. These are Balthier and Fran. Two great characters. I love Balthier.
Yeah, good character. These are Sky Pirates. We saw them show up before. We'll talk about characters as they get introduced in this. Balthier is an arrogant Han Solo type. It's part of why this has so much Star Wars feeling to it. Yeah, he is very Han Solo. He talks about himself as the leading man of the story. He's got a lot of flourish and flair. He's kind of like Setzer, or an Irvine, or like there's several like Final Fantasy characters that evoke this.
He's like a teleporter accident between Setzer and Locke.
Yeah. But better written.
Yes.
More fun to watch, really well acted. And then he has Fran with him, who is a Viera. Viera are nude bunny women, and they, the localization made them Icelandic. So she talks like Bjork.
Yeah.
Like she does. I don't really know how to do it, but in my head, it's always like this very baklava voice.
I can tell you it is not talking like Stitch, which is what you just did.
It sounds like Stitch to me.
Okay.
The mist of the here. Like she's got this very like
yeah.
There's a lot of like up in the top of your throat.
Yeah. The fact that they are Icelandic, I don't know if this is me exoticizing Iceland, but it does kind of leaven them a little bit from being just, elf stand-in, forest people. You're going to find where they live, Fran has, willingly left. It is not usual for Viera to be outside of where she, comes from, and definitely not usual for a Viera to be so tight with a hume.
Yes, which means human.
Yes.
No, I kind of hate that decision, but they are elves. Like the Iceland, it gives them a different flavor. This is just the story of a wood elf who's gone to the city.
Yes,
we're dealing with big archetypical stories here. We're not dealing with too much bespoke. What elevates it is the presentation. So the accent is important to the feel of Fran, even though Fran on the surface is a story we've seen a million fucking times.
Yeah. I like the relationship between Balthier and Fran. Like they trust each other implicitly, but they're kind of polar opposites in terms of their kind of affect, which is neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how it's aromantic. Of course, I'm going to say that because I don't like, sex in games, but Fran is not anyone's girlfriend.
Right.
Fran is not here as a love interest for anybody. I really appreciate that.
Well, except for the male gaze.
except for the player, because her tits are hanging out because they decided to make a race of naked bunny girls.
Yeah.
For some reason. Nobody in this, like this is a, to me, and this is not an objective quality or good. It just appeals to my sensibilities. A refreshingly sexless game.
Yeah.
Nobody in this game is horny.
It's concerned with other stuff. Yeah.
I love it. I want, man, the world's going to fucking end. There are magic rocks about. Ain't no time to bang. Like, have you heard about this magic rock? It's de-affected. And this one's manufactured. Like we can't fuck around with this. We got magic rocks about. Put your dick away.
We can fuck later. Trust me.
Yeah. Like we save the world first. Like I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
The stone is something called the goddess magicite. And it's what they came there to take as well. Yes. Vaughn decides to go along with him because he gets a little starstruck because they're sky pirates. Vaughn was just going to steal.
Yeah.
To steal. He didn't necessarily need this treasure. You would have a very different game if he just filled up his pockets with gold and left. Which also would have accomplished his goals. But again, he's just here for the ride.
Yeah.
You go to leave the palace and the Imperial airship attacks the feast. It is named Ifrit. All the airships are named after old Final Fantasy Summons. It's cute.
Old Final Fantasy Sevens. You got the Dirge Cerberus. You've got the Advent Children.
Yeah, you got the Crisis Core. Yeah. And you got the one with the Turks that's only on phones. That's coming out. They're actually releasing that
before Crisis. Yeah.
Yeah, before Crisis. It's weird that's coming to America. A remake of it, like a different version. Yeah. But they had followed Balthier and Fran.
Yeah.
Balthier picks up Vaughn and carries him bodily onto Fran's hover cycle, which gets shot down as they attempt to leave.
Yeah. Crash land in the sewer. And we find some defeated Imperials here. They say, hey, the rebels attacked, using the Fed as cover. And Balthier concludes, Vane used that party as a way to draw out these rebels. And they could just present a soft target that is as tempting as possible for them to come get us. The Ifrit wasn't here for them. It was for the rebels.
For the rebels. Yeah, it was a trap. Yeah. It's a trap, he says. We see a young woman run from the rebels and fall down to our level. She calls herself Amelia. And she joins as a guest. This is Princess Ash. We could recognize her from the cutscenes, even though the characters don't quite get it just yet.
Yes. Yeah. We'll talk about Ash once she is a kind of a more permanent part of the party. Yeah.
Yeah. You do this little short trip through the sewers. We're already done. And we have our first boss encounter here, which are a bunch of flans that drop from the ceiling. This is really slow rolling us into the systems on this. They have high physical resistance, and we don't have a magic user yet. Probably
we have Fran who comes with that, but
we haven't gone deep into the license board at this point. And at least where I was at in this game, I had not bought a lot of spells and stuff because I didn't have people to use them just yet. Like people were not in a class. For me, like kind of permanently put there yet. Yeah,
we're also kind of railroaded away from the stores.
Yes. This game constantly has a little message that says you will not be able to return to this area for a little while. Use a different save slot. Yes. Which is good. It's good that they warn you. But the point being is like the big thing that affected me in this boss fight was that they could blind me.
Yeah.
So I was just, using eye drops all the time in this. That was the big deal.
My eyes, I'm not supposed to get pudding in them.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels good. Tastes good. Doesn't see good.
Yeah. And this is kind of back to back. We, very shortly after we beat these flans, reach the room called the cloaca of the sewers. Each of the rooms has a fun little name to it. I enjoy.
The cloaca of the sewers, which is that an elected position, or is that
it's appointed? It's ceremonial.
Yeah, it's you get the key to the cloaca of the sewers. It's an object. You get it, and you become the sewer king, sewer queen.
But we got a fire horse hanging around here. This is a boss called Firemane. Have no idea why it's here. I can't do a bonfireside chat read on it. Just a big horse made of flames.
What's interesting, so that bonfireside chat DNA is only in hunts.
Yes.
If you look up hunts, you get a bestiary that it's weird. It has a perspective. There are like jokes in it.
I love the bestiary in this game.
Yeah, like there's it's some of the better writing in the game. It's weird. The NPCs all absolutely suck colossal amounts of shit, but the bestiary is good in terms of like writing and stuff. But it only is for hunts. As far as I know, like, can you look up who the Firemane is? I'm not calling you out for not doing it, but like,
you know what? I didn't. Yeah, no, there's a bestiary for everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Back when we were doing Monster in my podcast, I had suggested at one point doing the bestiary for Final Fantasy XII as this.
Yeah, it's generally pretty good. But I didn't look it up every single time. I was playing a video game. The big thing here is that he's made of it's elemental resistances. So they just introduced status effects. Now they're introducing elemental resistances. Since he's made of fire, he's going to resist fire. You have to make sure Fran is not casting fire on him.
It has a super powerful attack that will inflict poison on you, weirdly. This is kind of introducing ultimate attacks. It'll warn you when one of these is coming up.
Yes, it'll be like Firemane is charging this thing. After the fight, we get captured immediately by Imperials. And Vayne is there. Vayne came by and starts saying threatening things to Amalia. This is supposed to make us raise an eyebrow. She drew his attention. We're carried away. And Vaughn apologizes to Pinello, there. Yeah. And then we're introduced to another like weird little subplot that feels like it's going to be very important, but burns off pretty quick.
No, they need a Boba Fett, Jabba the Hutt kind of deal.
Exactly. There's a gang of goofy Bonga mercenaries who are like, we were the ones who were supposed to. You said there's supposed to be 4 people here. We were the ones who were supposed to kill Balthier.
Yeah. So they're going to be chasing us around for a little bit. Vaughn gets knocked out and has a coma dream where he sees Rex kind of just sitting, his brother Rex, sitting limply in a chair in this kind of white hospital room. It's meant, feels like it's meant to evoke that. He walks up and, doesn't respond when Vaughn talks, but Vaughn's like, hey, were you really, could you kill the king? Like, was this you? And he says, no, I figure, Bosch must have put you up to it like that. Like he must have tricked you.
He disappears. He leaves a ring, which Vaughn takes. You wake up on the ground in the Nelbina dungeons. They've sealed off the lowest level of the fortress to turn into a prison, where the judges do gladiator battles. In this, the judges are pretty different than they are in Final Fantasy Tactics Advance.
In Tactics Advance, they feel like they're features of the geography, whereas here they're like lieutenants, they're military commanders.
Yeah, they're generals.
Yeah,
in this, and they all have different personalities and stuff. But in my head, because I had kind of was conflating this with Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I was like, oh, these guys are mystical and have like reality powers.
No.
In Tactics Advance, like if you do the thing that they don't like, they like disappear you to a realm. Here they're just guys in armor.
Yeah.
They're just folk.
Yeah. And they end up being really interesting characters as a result of that. Some of the best performances in the game. Yeah.
They're cool. I wish that we had spent, like, they're kind of like Turks-y in this. I wish that we had spent more time with more of them.
I want more Drace. Give me Drace.
Yeah, Drace is great. Drace is cool. Yeah. So Vaughn, Fran, and Balthier use one of these fights to escape, and we see those bounty hunters. Bagamnan is the main one. He followed there, and he's like, "Ooh, I was supposed to kill him again." He boss hogs. You follow some Imperials to get out, and they're along with a judge. They use their magic and open a sealed door. That's how we get out.
Yes. And we follow them. They're being led by Judge Gabranth, who comes in and walks up to Bosch, who is alive. It's been 2 years. He was charged with treason. And also, Gabranth pulls off his helmet, and it reveals he is Bosch's twin brother. Bosch is hanging in this cage. He's got a big old scraggly beard. And he's all thin because, again, 2 years. And he's here to kind of like toy with him. Gabranth calls Bosch, less than a shadow, less than a man, sentenced to death, and yet you live. Why?
Yeah. And he says to silence Andor. How many times may I say it? We don't know who Andor is yet. Andor is the narrator.
Yeah.
Guy, the Marquis. Gabranth calls him a faithful hound clinging to a fallen kingdom. Gabranth and Bosch threw away their homeland of Landis. It just Gabranth joined the side that sacked it. So they're both expatriates from an area we don't really see. One of which chose the losing side of this war is the implication.
Yes. So Gabranth and the others leave. They've gotten what they wanted for now. And Vaughn, sees this as an opportunity for revenge. He wants answers. He jumps onto Bosch's cage, which is hanging over a void. It's like, why you're a betrayer. You killed my brother. You killed our king. What the fuck?
Yeah. The cage falls and breaks, and they go deeper into the tunnel. And Bosch joins the party as a guest, which Vaughn doesn't like. Yeah. You could wring a lot of pathos out of this, but like everything with Vaughn, it just gets taken care of. Yeah, he just decides. He's like, I'm not actually mad about it. Now that I realize that I wasn't actually there, and I don't know what I was going. I was that was propaganda. I have a reason to distrust the Empire. Okay, just fucking idiot. I hate Vaughn so much. But I didn't take him out of my party because I was like, oh, he'll be a thief. That makes sense flavor wise, and I want to be able to steal. So I ended up spending the entire game with Vaughn in my party, even though I would have loved to have booted him.
No.
So, yeah. So this takes us into the Barheim Passage.
Yeah. The gates, they're powered by electricity, but they're not functional. First, we have to find a tube. This is just a little errand we have to do to power up the circuits. But then we learn that this passage is full of mimics, and mimics love electricity.
Yes. So this dungeon has a gimmick. They are draining the electricity in the dungeon, which will cut out the lights, which will make zombies appear. So you have to go hunt down the mimics. Once you kill them, the power comes back. They like puke it back up, but it ends up giving you, unlike every other dungeon in the game, like you have something you need to race towards to kill first. Yeah. Like pretty strong gimmick for a dungeon in this game.
Yeah. Which they just drop, which is unfortunate. I love mimics in this. They're spidery kind of things. They mimic chests, which are kind of these, in some regions, these real ornate things. There are also save crystal mimics as well. It is a real fun dick move. Yeah. Fran, who's down here, goes, "I'm especially strong." And Bosch tells Vaughn, he didn't kill his brother. It was my twin. It was the one-armed man.
It was the one-armed. I don't care, says Vaughn. And Bosch like, I don't expect you to believe this, but believe my brother.
But believe in your brother.
Believe in your brother. Yeah.
Rex wouldn't have gone along with that. Like, just like I am offering an explanation. You don't have to believe me. Just believe the person that you value.
Yes. After you go through this and get all the power back on, you find the entrance to this gigantic mimic queen. And the Mimic Queen has little tiny mimics that go around the arena draining power. So you can go and fight those little things, but she'll keep laying clutches of them. You can't just kill them all. You want to focus on her because the fight will end then.
Yeah.
Kill the source, kill the dungeon cloaca that's birthing these things, not the dungeon. The mimics begin at birth.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you just end the fight as soon as you can. And it's not a problem. Yeah. We emerge. We're in the Dalmasca Ester Sands. Bosch, wants to walk right back into the tiger's mouth. People still think that he's a treasonous dog, but his duty to the kingdom has not changed. He's got to go and resume that. Yeah,
it's one of those things. It's very similar to like a BioShock Infinite, where he should wear a hat and shave. Like you could do something.
He does shave.
He does shave, but he does it for like shaving reasons, not for disguise reasons.
Yeah.
Like it would make sense for him to put on a cloak or something. They get back there. Bosch and the others leave when you arrive. Leave Vaughn, so Vaughn's there. Balthier tells Vaughn he can keep the magicite. He says this is ill omen. It's bad luck.
Yeah,
it's going to turn out to be an important magic rock. Van takes it to old Dallin, who gives him an errand. He gives Vaughn a sword of the order and says, "You need to find a man named Ivalice because I have a plan."
Yeah. Well, he doesn't even tell the plan to Vaughn, just like, take it back to this guy. Hopefully he will, kind of remember his duty, he says, as Vaughn leaves. Yeah. The people on the street lead us to this hideout. This is a little pocket of resistance. And it turns out that Ivalice is Vossler. Again, guy who's just kind of hanging around in the periphery, was there alongside Amelia. And is currently in a confrontation with Bosch, saying like, "Hey, you're still a traitor, and your cage has no bars, but a cage remains. Just like you're not an asset, even if I can trust you."
Yep. Vossler says there are spies in the organization, and he sees foes everywhere in this, treating everyone like that imperial abettor Andor. So it gives a little bit more context on Andor before we meet him as Lando Calrissian.
Yes.
Bosch asks Van to help him find Balthier. Even a caged bird needs wings. He's going to go about his business, Vossler or no.
Yeah.
And here's where Vaughn decides not to have his backstory. And he's like, "No, I'll trust you."
Yeah.
No.
And
they go to the bar.
Yeah, they go to the bar and they find Balthier and Fran at Sanseat having an unpleasant conversation with Magello, who has sought them out. Penella's been kidnapped. Some shady figures grabbed her and left a note for Balthier saying like, "Hey, you want to rescue this young girl? Come find us. We're in the flying city of Bhujerba."
Yeah. Oh no, not Penello. So Bosch wanted to go to Bhujerba himself. So everyone gets on Balthier's ship and takes off.
Yes.
There is a thing that happens here where you go to the sky, like the airport for this. And this allows you to travel to different continents before you get the airship by choosing either a private cabin, which means you just teleport there, or a public one where there are stores and stuff. Even in the Zodiac version, one of the rarest items in the game appears 1% of the time. In here, it's invisible, and then 1% of the time it appears, there's a 1% chance it has like this super bow in it, super bow or a super sword.
Yeah.
So even though they got rid of the actual Zodiac spear shit, there's still some real nonsense. Also, the way you get here is you have to talk to Balthier. I went to the travel counter for this and got kind of fucked. I was confused.
It's a lot of money at the start as well.
Yes.
To hop aboard one of those. Yeah. But yeah, we take the ship to Bhujerba, and we're immediately greeted when we land by this teen boy calling himself Lamont, speaking very properly. And Balthier is keeping an eye on him. He doesn't trust him.
Yes. Lamont's a great character.
Love it.
I like Lamont. Good boy and well acted.
Yes.
The actor was 15 at the time they did this, which is really good for like a teenage actor. Yeah, like did a good job. So our attention is on the Lusu mines. That's probably where they're being kept. These are rich veins of magicite in Ivalice. We get a little cutscene to Judge Geese marching through the mines with Marquis Andor. Andor is reassuring the judge that the mined magicite is discreetly making its way to Vane. Basically, the judge is keeping Andor in order This is a vassal state.
Yeah. And Lamont is very knowledgeable about these goings on, saying like, hey, the Imperial fleet's like massing around here, but, even the Marquis is not going to let the military just, tromp around. They're not occupying this place. Yes. And he says, hey, Andor served as this mediator for the surrender of Dalmasca, but there are these rumors that he's aiding the resistance in secret.
Yeah. Have you seen Star Wars? He's Lando Calrissian. So you go to the mines, the Lusu mines. This is much more maze-like here. And in addition to just bats, which we've been fighting forever, they're undead, which kind of ambush you.
Yeah.
Gives you a little bit of like more incident to the combat encounters, even though you don't do a lot of prep per encounter, so an enemy just appearing versus me rounding a corner or just walking up to an enemy doesn't feel that different.
Yeah.
In this, it's fine.
Reacting to new information. It's like something like rounded a corner on you and joined the fight in an MMO. Like, oh, we accidentally draw aggro on this thing we weren't aware was there.
Yeah. And at this point, your gambits are rolling to a degree at the very least. The characters for me just took care of them.
Yeah.
They didn't really do it. They just, you guys figure that out. This is the beginning of that. And it slowly, got more intense as the game went on. We reach this empty mining chamber here, and Lamont picks up a stone here. This is manufactured nethicite. I think that's never explained. People just say manufactured nethicite. Eventually they say what this is, but it doesn't get explained here. They're just like, hey, it's manufactured nethicite. And I don't know what that means at this point. We don't know what that, like, we eventually find out. And characters talk about it, but it takes a little bit.
I'm good with that. I'm good with it being named and then not immediately being explained. That feels like realistic cadence to me.
It's surprising that they did it that way.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing in the development of this. There's an interesting story where they talked about Western versus Japanese audiences and how one of the things they did in localization was cut out a lot of characters explaining to each other stuff they would already know. So like the example that I saw was the first, you can get chocobos in this thing. They work on a timer and they stop you from having to fight stuff. And they gate really annoying hidden areas. But they in the Japanese version of this, you go up and the merchant would just say, these are chocobos. You can ride them. This is how they work. And then the localized version, the merchant instead talks about a thief who stole his chocobo and kind of implies all the things that you need to know about chocobos through more naturalistic dialogue.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting to see what they did to cut down on people telling each other codexes.
Yeah. Imagine, just living in this world, living on Earth. You walk up to somebody like, hey, this is a horse. People can ride it, but sometimes they also do work.
Yeah. There's 2 motorcycles, a little house in between them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah. But so there's the differentiation, just going into some of the rocks here. They're mining magicite. It's unusual that this manufactured nethicite is here. This is kind of laid out like this is an unnatural stone refined for magicite created by the Draclor laboratory, and Balthier perks up at this. Like he wants to know more.
For reasons we'll find out.
Yes. Yeah.
He has a tie to the Draclor lab.
But before we can learn more about this, we're ambushed. Bagemnon shows up and says like, hey, if you're looking for Penelo, she's not here. We cut her loose once you came into the mines. You're trapped. And you're gonna have to fight us. This was changed. This actually was you were going to find Penelo tied up here, but shortly before the game was released in Japan, there was a famous child murderer and kidnapper who kind of did something similar. Kidnapped girls and tied them up, and they had to change this in order to not get a higher rating for seeming exploitative of this actual tragedy that happened.
Yeah. It's also one of 2. There aren't very many of them that I ran into. Optional boss fights that are on the story path. You can fight here. Balthier says don't.
Yes.
He says we can't take them on run, and they are tough. I don't know if you get something cool if you fight them. I just ran because the game told me to.
Yeah, game told me to. It felt more dramatic. Yeah.
You get to the mine entrance, and Lamont steps out in front of the others to stay hidden from a judge who has found Penelo.
Yeah.
This is where Balthier figures it out.
Yeah. Balthier says, hey, Lamont is actually Larsa. He's the youngest son of the Arcadian Emperor. He's Vane's younger brother, and he absolutely knows who we are.
Yep. So Balthier tells Vaughn, Penelo's going to be safe. They're immediate, we have to find Andor.
Yeah.
If he's been diverting money to resistance groups, that's our next step.
Yeah.
Bosch figures out that if Andor was to hear rumors of himself, or Vaughn figures this out, that Bosch was still alive, it would inconvenience him enough so he'd have to pay attention.
Yes.
Because Andor was the one who announced that Bosch was executed.
Mm-hmm.
So this introduces us. Every Final Fantasy game has a famously cringy part to it. It's the laughing in Final Fantasy X. In this one, it is Vaughn running around town pressing a button that yells that he's Vosh.
It's pretty. It's funny.
I'm Vosh.
Why do they think this is like you have to maximize your annoyance? You have to go around to specifically groups of people. If one of them's holding a book, they're worth more awareness points or whatever, and you want to make sure that you're not doing it near a city official because they will catch you and reduce your meter to 0. You're not just saying I'm Captain Vosh von Ronsenberg. He'll also say don't believe Andor's lies, which it really made me want to do a Photoshop of the don't believe his lies from Memento.
Oh yeah. It's very funny that this works because this little tiny like Tim Heidecker and the Crimbus special just running around saying that he is this infamous criminal who was just there 2 years ago. Like it's not ancient history or anything.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how this convinces anybody. Like a 15-year-old kid walks up to me and is like, hey, I'm Steve Bannon. I'm Steve Bannon. I'm Steve Bannon. Like I'd be annoyed, but I wouldn't be like, that guy's really Steve Bannon. Like,
look at him.
Yeah. I cannot imagine this being convincing to anybody.
Yeah.
It is a pretty dumb plan. It works, but it is a rare stupid ball kind of thing.
Yeah.
In this.
So just we do this until we're pulled into a tavern by some local resistance. There's a cutaway to the airship. Penelo and Larsa are just kind of talking. She's not, a prisoner. She's not being kept in a cell. She's just here with her buddy on the Leviathan. And Penelo says, like, hey, you have to understand, I don't trust the Empire. They took everything from me. And Larsa's kind of surprised by this. He, at least outwardly, believes the hype about his family.
Yes.
Which Vane is both exploiting and undercutting by doing his stuff. Yep.
Larsa's a true believer.
Yes.
And one of the things that happens with him is he loses his innocence.
Yes.
Throughout this. Andor is surprised to see Bosch alive. This is all part of Vane's plot to keep Andor under his thumb.
Yeah.
Like this was collateral, or leverage, basically.
Oh, like I could reveal you to be a liar at any time.
Yep. Yeah. And if a politician got caught lying, Bosch says his goal is to rescue Amalia. They're another resistance leader. And they start kind of speaking in innuendo.
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, it's good.
Honor says, "Oh, the fleet is departing tonight. I've heard that maybe they might have some valuable folks on there. Surely you're aware of the exigencies of leadership. You might find the enemy's chains as an easy burden to bear, which is basically saying like, we need to make this. If you want to get on there, I can get you on there, but we need to make it look legit." Balthier is like, "No, don't do this." And Bosch just draws his sword. Just like, I'm going to kill you. And Andor calls. He calls for help so they can be arrested and taken onto the Leviathan. It's great.
This kind of speaking with subtext is something that I do not associate with this series.
No, not at all.
Like characters not just stating directly what they want and who they are is something that does not happen very often.
It feels weird to praise a piece of fiction for using subtext.
That's the curve that we're on with this series, man. Like it's I agree. It sucks that this counts as great, but it does within the genre and within the series. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's cool. Like you have to read between the lines a little bit.
It's great.
We do a little, we get captured. We do a little cutaway to Vane and Rabanastra, who is frustrated that the Senate is tying his hands when it comes to putting down the resistance. The Senate, and this is so funny. It's like early Venture Brothers Council of 13, but then they just, get taken care of off camera and get, perp walked out. That's it.
Yeah.
It really feels like they're going to be a really big deal. And it's part of what gave it Star Wars feels to me, because it's like, oh man, we're dealing with the fucking Senate.
Yeah. No,
it's going to be that kind of shit.
It doesn't get wrapped up in procedure. They keep it just as intrigue.
It goes away pretty quick, but the characters still get a lot of scenery to chew.
Yeah. It exists to be overthrown. It doesn't wait until, the beginning of the third movie to have it happen.
Yes. Yeah. Gabranth walks in with word from Andor. And Vane does not trust Andor, of course. He knows he's a Lando. Gis is on his way with the fugitives, and Gabranth says he's going to kill Bosch himself.
Yeah.
There.
And Vane's like, oh, I really appreciate your sense of fraternity.
Yes. It's because that's his brother. Gabranth leaves, and Dr. Sid comes in from Drakkar Laboratory. Dr. Sid's a really great character in this. He's shitty. He's a villain. He's not like a deep character, I don't think, but he's really, really well performed.
Oh yeah.
In this, and him being much more important than he initially seems here, I think is handled pretty well.
Yeah. And you can tell there's a family resemblance, something that is, aided by the fact that this is a good looking game. Like they actually have the ability to model characters who look like each other. He looks exactly like Balthier. And he's Balthier's dad, we can reasonably assume. And he has this progress report about this Nethicite saying, we must see the real thing to be sure. Naboo-D taught us much. We're going to learn what happened to Naboo-D, but we can actually go in and see. It's a challenge dungeon.
Yep. It's not great.
Nope.
And Sid says what TV tropes are called arc words in this. Tells Vane their efforts will ensure that the reins of history will be in the hands of man.
Yeah.
Kind of laying out the enemy plot, and maybe a good point to call it for this episode. We've been recording for about 3 hours.
We have. We are right before a climax as we go in and get our final character on the Dreadnought Leviathan. We have portentous things happening all around. This has been fun. I'm really happy to finally be talking about this because this game is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, and I was happy to revisit it and find that I like it more this version.
Yes.
Like for me, this is like a wrap up thought thing, so this will be more next episode. But like, it ends up being in the middle of the Final Fantasies I like for me. But I was very happy to give it a second shot. There are things to recommend it, and it was one of those things where the remake just made the systems and the inelegances get out of the way long enough, to where I could see the story. Yeah. And see the kind of pacing and presentation.
Hey, Gary, do we have anything to highlight?
We sure do. We always do. If you are listening to this and you have a project, an artistic project, or a fundraising thing, a podcast, music production, art, anything like that, and you are not a straight white cis dude, let us know. Go to email me at Gary@Duckfeed.tv, and we might give you a shout out. Like we are in this episode. Give a shout out to Victoria, who co-host and created a podcast called We Happen to Be Trans, a pop culture podcast, which is really cool. I like the perspective that she has on all this stuff. The idea here is that they are, it is hosted by trans women, but it's about pop culture in general. Trans individuals are not defined by their gender identity. They also have opinions, they can have opinions on pop culture stuff the same way that everyone can, because of course they can.
They don't have to be forced to look at stuff from that perspective.
Yeah,
they can analyze. No
minority is a monolith. And then so check that out. That is called like I said, We Happen to Be Trans, a pop culture podcast. And then another project she did that I really am looking forward to personally checking out. I don't check out all the highlight stuff. I do a quick fast screening, but I don't have time. I just moved. I've been unpacking and stuff. But she created and co-hosted an LGBTQ plus stream called Transvengers for 2 years. And the idea, it's 3 other trans women of various sexual identities answer questions about being trans and or gay. And they raise money. It was donated to the Trevor Project. a couple people who were there came out during the show. It sounds really cool. And I want to say, as just like a straight dude, I have questions about cultures that I am not part of.
Yep.
I'm curious, and it is sometimes difficult to know the decorum around asking. Am I going to be offensive or hurt anyone's feelings just by asking?
Right.
And that's not me saying like, oh, people are so sensitive. Nobody has a responsibility to explain shit to me. That they're perfectly within their rights to, and it's not my lane. I don't know. But the idea, I think that this is a huge service to have a stream, like have an event that like you can ask questions at. I cannot imagine the exhaustion of being a trans person or a gay person and just having to screen good faith questions.
That's, I mean, just somebody sea lining you just constantly.
100%. And all I can think is like, I'm not doing that. I just actually want to know. And they don't have any reason to trust me. Like I'm just a ding dong. So like having a thing where people are setting out to do that, I think is really cool.
Yeah. So it is a great service. And that is a wonderful idea for a kind of event that I can only imagine how useful that is for a number of people.
So that is a stream. So the archives are up on Twitch. It is a long, kind of thing for the individual archives of that, but you can go to the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/transvengers.
Yeah.
And both these projects are currently on hiatus, but they're going to come back. You can come and check out the archives, and it sounds very useful to me.
Yeah. We happen to be Trans Pop Culture Podcast and the Transvengers, LGBTQIA plus Q&A.
Yeah. Hosted by Victoria Maximus.
Thank you.
So if you have a project like that, you want to hopefully draw some attention to it, we're trying to do what we can. Hit me up at Gary@Duckfeed.tv.
Yeah. For our own promotional stuff, you can go to our Patreon and get extra bonus content, help us out, support the entire network and this show. It is a cool thing to do, we think, and you get cool stuff in return for it. Also, we announced this a couple of episodes ago, but it bears repeating. Orb, our show about the Venture Brothers, is coming to an end, and we are replacing it with a new project, Best Quality Vacuum, talking about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. That'll be launching here sometime in the fall. And we'll have more details about that later. The reception to that announcement has been wonderful. I am happy that people are excited. And this is just a cool time to be talking about stuff in that universe.
Yeah. People have had mixed reactions to the name, which is funny because I think the name is perfect. We could have called it like Magnets, or Science, bitch, or something like that. And a couple of people, who also express apprehension of the name. Other people have been like, oh, are you guys going to figure out whether Walt and Saul are good people? I don't think we're on any illusions about. Part of the reason why I like that name is because it is neutral. The idea of treating anything like there are Breaking Bad memes I think are funny. The idea of branding the show around something like that is letting it off the hook.
Yeah.
It's more than just like, magnets. Yeah, magnets. Like that's funny. But also, it is a show about the corrupting influence of evil in men and how it drags everyone around them down. It is about heavy shit that we're going to take seriously.
Yes, yeah. The subtitle for the show should just be "Depiction is not endorsement."
Yes. Yep. So join us on Patreon, as we mentioned, patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv. Get all those bonus episodes and everything. We really appreciate it. You can be like Nat. You can sponsor an episode. We still have a couple slots left this year, but we're running low. And ratings, reviews on Apple Podcasts and Podcast Addict.
Please do. I think some of those people making fun of the name for not being good. I think they were doing a pun on that. The people that I saw said that name sucks.
Got you.
about it being a vacuum.
I'm a Bluntstone, I guess. I'm very used to people just drive by yelling at us and being mean.
Yeah. Everybody who said something negative said something along the lines of that name really sucks. So I can only, it could be both, maybe the shitty Beatles are really shitty.
Yes.
But yeah. So there we go. I just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back with the remainder of Final Fantasy XII next week. And until next time, leave Vaughn and Pinello at the gas station.
Yes. Fire department will take them in.